John, have you got a link to your channel? I can put it in the side chat, John.
Yeah, sure. I'll post it in the description.
Oh, I'll pin it.
Yeah, I'll quickly get the channeling up. Yeah, so yeah, I'm just happy to finally be back on YouTube since the stupid hate speech strikes wore off. And the stuff I got hate speech strikes on were just ridiculous. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, the word hate speech is just basically lost all meaning. I mean, hate speech is anything that doesn't agree with something.
Well, I think the hate speech is reporting what somebody else has said just to get the video downloaded. That's just cancel culture, isn't it? I mean, if somebody's making a fool by making threats.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all that it is.
Let everybody see it instead of hiding it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And plus, too, I'm a free speech absolutist. Like, I believe in 100% free speech, no censorship. Yeah. But I've always said too that if I'm debating somebody or if I'm arguing with somebody I don't like, my answer to them is not to censor.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. But I don't think.
But I was saying that my answer to someone who I disagree with is that I'd say that if was that.
I don't know if Christians have a right to free speech.
Go ahead. Well, in this country,
in the sense of
we certainly
we
don't.
can't just speak any way we
playground
want.
Of Canada.
We do have to speak in a way that's glorifying to Jesus Christ.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously we can't blaspheme God. There's that. I mean, we don't have free speech to blaspheme God. But like in terms of like saying things like like biblical stuff, then free speech we have that. But like obviously we can't just go around blaspheming God or using profanity. We don't have free speech in that area.
No. I'm just going to go into the.
I mean, under the Old Testament law, there was a death penalty for those who blaspheme God. I mean, obviously, we're not that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm just going to pin your.
It's also kind of funny too how I was actually reading it. Go ahead.
I've just pinned your.
I'm trying to find that verse.
Link to your channel.
But just keep in mind too, I think your audio is a bit delayed. So if I'm talking over you, it's not me. I think it's just either mine or your audio is a bit delayed. Just keep in mind. So what happens is that I think you stop talking, then I go off, and then so just keep that in mind. I think because my internet is just really bad, so my audio is just a bit delayed.
If I come out of the studio for a second, John, and then come back in, it might be better.
Yeah.
I'll just do that. Stay there. I'll be there.
Sure.
I'll be back in a minute.
That could be it. All right. No problem.
Is that any better, John? All right.
Yeah, that's
I just went completely out of the studio, refreshed it, and then.
Because the problem on my end was that either mine or yours was cutting out. So
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what happened was with the audio was that I think either mine or yours was a bit delayed. So what happened was that I would have thought you would stop talking, and I would say my piece, and then of course you still weren't finished talking. So it could either be bad internet on my part or just bad audio. I'm not sure, but just that was what was going on.
I'm beginning to get suspicious that YouTube, Google, StreamYard do that on purpose to cause frustration and stress on people.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I know it sounds a little bit paranoid.
Very well be the case.
We know what these people are like. I do.
Yeah, I mean, we can get.
I do still think
we can call us conspiracy theorists, this and that, but hey, we know what they're like, and we know the kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty amazing that I mean, like, I had a conversation with you and Jeff for 6 hours. Both of you are in Canada, and it didn't cost me a penny.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing of the internet.
Yeah. So
yeah, but that's the thing too, is that it's like,
are there any
the
Christians
internet.
being
I've always said too. I think the internet. I do believe it was ultimately created to. What was that?
Are there any Christians being persecuted at the moment, John? Do you think Christians in the biblical sense?
Not in terms of like not in terms of like government persecution, but there have been some cases where I mean, in terms of like beating down our houses and arresting us and that kind of stuff, and beating us in the streets, it's not been that bad. The worst we've ever experienced was maybe you get like a, charges filed against you for hate speech or something like that. There's one instance where these two Christian pastors, this is back in 2005, so it goes back a long way, where these two Christian pastors were actually arrested. Like, they were doing a radio show and they were actually arrested live on the radio show because they had said some stuff about homosexuality that was not politically correct.
Makes you wonder.
And that was back in 2005. This is when same-sex marriage was still actually illegal in some areas of Canada, and they're doing it back then too.
Makes you wonder what we're allowed to talk about, John. I mean, tiddlywinks or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is too is that supposedly basically from what I've learned, apparently the freedom of speech in Canada, it basically protects you criticizing political ideologies, but you can't criticize. For example, I couldn't say things like, "Hey, Muslims are not they're not Christians. They worship a different God." That would be hate speech, for example. But like, I can criticize, say, "Hey, I think liberalism is detrimental to Canada." That's protected free speech. But it's for example, I can criticize Trudeau and that's free speech, but I can't criticize, for example, Islam or anything else, and that's that's the big difference there.
Yeah, John, do you want to try?
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun.
John,
go ahead.
I'll still be here. Come out of the studio.
Yeah.
Refresh your StreamYard thingy.
Yeah.
And then do your microphone settings, and then come back in. Just waiting for John to come back in. I just want to make sure we've got a good connection there. It worked for me. There. All right, John.
See if that works.
Yeah, it seems better now.
Yep. All right. I want to see if I can try to plug my Wi-Fi router into the computer. That might actually do some better stuff.
I was going to, but I'm sick of all these leads and stuff. Why can't they just make everything Bluetooth? So you don't have leads, cords. And
yeah.
It's like a rat's nest around the end of my
I agree.
writing desk.
Yeah. Yeah, very true, yeah.
So
that's the problem with the internet at times, especially when you have slow internet where I am.
I noticed, I don't want to go on about him, but I noticed, I mean, for the last day or so, he said he was going to come off YouTube, and he keeps making videos about coming off YouTube. And then he made one video, "Oh, I've left YouTube." Not really.
Who does?
Ben. Ben from the UK.
Oh, Ben. Oh. Yeah, he's something else.
Yeah. Oh, well. I don't wish any ill on him, John, but...
You see, I actually found this video where I think he actually re-uploaded Aaron's video. I think he might have actually... last time I checked, he actually reposted Aaron's video he did on you. Like, what was it called? Beelzebub or whatever? That was...
Beelzebub, yeah. And it's an absolute rubbish recording. Yeah. It's rubbish. I've explained to him the whole story.
You gotta admit, that's a pretty creative name, Beelzebub.
Yeah. I found it funny. That was Aaron, that.
Yeah. You gotta admit, it is a pretty creative name, though. Beelzebub. It is a pretty creative name.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously stuck in Ben's mind.
It's just like when they call me John Kraken or whatever. It's like, yeah.
But when you know,
like I saw one comment where Aaron. This is when Aaron and I were still enemies. I saw one comment where Aaron referring to me as the Kraken.
yeah,
Oh man.
the Kraken, yeah. But I explained it. I explained it all to him. I thought I'd made it clear that the Denlinger crew started calling me a Jesuit coadjutor, and then I got made into Jesuit provincial. But when they made that initial accusation, you see, if anybody knows anything about the Jesuits, you know they're associated with the cover up of the paedophile and all that sort of stuff in the Catholic so-called church. And they're a disgusting bunch of people.
Yeah.
Not all of them. I mean, the higher level Jesuits.
Yeah, they're a bunch of Satanists.
And
yeah.
My response, and unfortunately, because there was about 12 or 13 different email addresses I put on this email that I sent, and yours was included. I kept trying to delete it, but it just kept messing up in the thingy. I don't know why. What I thought, I probably said to myself, "Oh, sod it, I'll just send it." You know what I mean? It was like sending.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
So I said, I said something. You've got a copy of that email anyway. I know you archived it somewhere.
I do, yeah.
But I said to him, right, you've accused me of being a Jesuit, something like that. So I said to them, everybody in that email, right, I think you're all a bunch of paedophiles until you can prove different. I don't want to talk to you. But they made a similar. The nature of the accusation was it's basically impossible to prove I'm not a Jesuit, John, isn't it? I mean, if you wrote to the so-called Pope, on headed paper from the Vatican that, John Kragen's not a Jesuit, all that would do is encourage them to believe that you're a Jesuit. So
Yeah, that is true, actually. Because, and plus, too, it's like, when you get down to it, their only ground to call me a Jesuit is because, I spoke against Bryan Denlinger. That's it. When you get down to it, that's kind of the reason. Or no, because I'm associated with you. Because not only did you become Jesuit provincial, I became like your student or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What was it? Brad called you now. Something to do with a tat poodle.
I don't know. In that 10-minute clip. I don't know.
Bob's pet bunny, a tat poodle.
Yeah.
Something like that. I can't remember.
And it's like in the clips I posted. In the clips I posted on my channel, I said this last night, but like in the clips, what he made it seem like was like it's Star Wars and you're the Sith and I'm your apprentice. That's what he made it seem like. Yeah. Okay.
When have I ever tried to tell you anything or what to do, John? I wouldn't do it. I mean, I was just glad that day when you got a video done by Bryan was plugging Jacob's book. I was watching it. I was streaming it. And then I got a notification, Aaron Deering, he was doing a hit piece on you. And I think I messaged you, Bryan.
Yeah.
No, you came into my studio and I said, "Oh, John, what did I say to you now?" I mean, I was just so glad that you just got away. I said to King's Table a couple of weeks before that, especially after Bryan did that video on the IFB saying about the families of those children deserve to have their children abused, blah, blah, blah. I've still got the clip. I said I'm totally amazed that John hasn't woken up.
I still have the clip as well.
Especially after hearing that, and lo and behold, you have done. And then Aaron Deering, you'd obviously...
Yeah, and even then, and like even then, I was seeing problems ever since then too. So I was kind of slowly waking up because I was seeing problems after that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I hadn't fully waken up, but like when at the time he made that statement, I actually was kind of starting to wake up because I realized, wait a second, he basically was just sanctioning pedophilia. So it's like, at that point I'm thinking like, okay, and then over time I saw more, and then of course that fateful day of September 27th, 2020, I had those two videos. John Kragen is not saved.
Yeah.
And that was that point. I'm like, yep, they're a cult, and I left.
Yeah, and especially when they kicked Tim out and when they treated him like garbage.
Because keep in mind, all I did was just make a live stream.
Yeah.
Well, the way they treated Tim just proved
polite
that.
video, John. I think you could have gone a lot harder.
It just proved that.
You was very polite.
But it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny as well because in my situation, I did a live stream where I was just loving. All I was doing was just voicing my disagreements. I was trying to be very nice and polite as possible. But then the next day, I wake up with a comment saying that I'm devil possessed and I'm a Jesuit, I'm this and that, all because I just simply voiced my disagreements with Bryan Denlinger. So
yeah, and it was polite because I watched that video, and I know it was polite, John. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to be as nice as possible, but somehow, but even though that I was apparently I was devil possessed. I like the comment said that I was possessed with the spirit of divination, like in Acts 16. Okay.
Even Phil Newton.
And then of course Aaron does those 2 hit pieces on me. That was pretty funny, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, I don't have any resentment towards Aaron. I'd still like to talk to him.
Does that be like the kind of guy where somebody would post a comment? Yeah. Well, he's an interesting character. I find it kind of funny too how back when I have like multiple screenshots of where somebody would post a comment disagreeing with Bryan Denlinger, and he would just post Bryan's salvation message in his response. Basically, anybody who disagrees with Bryan was lost.
Yeah.
And he would just post Bryan's salvation message in their comments.
I do wonder if Matthew is on it because he knows all about what's gone on in Skype. He knows that certain people have been lied to about by certain people.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that even though he's got a lot of respect for Bryan because Bryan witnessed to Matthew and he got saved and this, that, and the other. I'm not despising that. But I'm sure Matthew surely can see the inconsistency, the lies that's been going on. He knows Tim. He's close friends with Tim.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the problem with guys like Matthew and JT is that they're both just respecters of persons. I mean, they respect Bryan in the sense that they're respecters of his person, and they just, they just, and that's a lot of us who are part of this group, myself included, were respecters of persons toward Bryan. I mean, Tim was like that. I was like, I mean, all of us were like that when we were part of this group because, we looked up to him, we saw him as a good teacher, we learned a lot from him. So obviously we developed kind of respect and person towards him. And then, but then when we saw his true colors, we were kind of shocked.
Bryan did some excellent videos.
I mean, for example, that one time where I said King's Table. Remember that one time where? Yeah. Like there was that one time where I said that King's Table was saved, and then Bryan, of course, does that video and I say King's Table was lost. That was actually just me being a respecter of person towards Bryan. I'll openly admit to that.
I wouldn't worry about it, John.
Yeah. The problem is too is that when you have a preacher who does bring out a lot of truth, because that is true. Like Bryan does preach a lot of sound biblical doctrine. You ultimately will naturally have a lot of respect for that person, but then it can develop into being a respecter of persons. So that's kind of the dangerous thing. Yeah,
up to the point, I would say, especially now after 2 years of this, his ministry went pear-shaped. I would say the very day that he introduced his wife into the streams. And she obviously got him doing stuff. She made him look stupid.
Yeah, the thing about his wife is...
And then it went...
Yeah, his wife is a very interesting character. I mean, like based on what I've seen about her, she's a very interesting character, to say the least.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I don't have a problem with Christian women being on videos. I just personally think that, like, if I was to get married and have a wife, if I were to bring her on a video of mine, I would probably like have it a bit more controlled environment to where I wouldn't just let her run her mouth all the time. I would probably like make sure I control what she says and make sure I control her this way. I wouldn't just let her run her mouth all the time.
There was nothing wrong with him getting her.
If I did have a wife and I brought her on one of my videos,
he could have got her to start her own YouTube channel. He could have plugged it and just got all the women going over there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, even Steven Anderson, his wife has her own YouTube channel. And her YouTube channel is mostly just about, like how to raise kids, how to, because she has like 12 kids. So I mean, I have no problem with Christian women making videos. I just think when it comes to like teaching biblical doctrine, it's kind of more, it's more of kind of a man's job. I mean, if she wants to make like a small video or just do like a gospel presentation, I have no issue with that. But when it comes to like big drawn out sermons, that's more of a man's job.
She's got 12 children.
Yeah, Steven Anderson, he is, I mean, to his credit, that's something that Steven Anderson is good on. It probably, like last time I checked, they have 12 children, and I think they have their 13th is on the way. That's the last time I checked. I could be wrong, but like because when I was part of Anderson's call, I used to actually correspond with his oldest son, who at the time, and last time I ever saw them, last time I ever saw of them, they had at least like 12 or 13 kids because his wife. In fact, Anderson was also featured on a BBC documentary as well about American hate preachers. And at the time, his wife was pregnant with their 9th baby at the time, and that was 4 years ago, at least 4 or 5 years ago. No, actually 6 years ago. I do apologize.
Yeah, 12 children. Wow.
But yeah, his wife is like I think in her late 30s, and Anderson's in his early 40s. Yeah, but like based on what I understand, Anderson is like in his like early 40s now, and his wife is like in her late 30s. I think it is. I forget who's older, but they're kind of approaching the age where we can't have kids anymore. Though. That's kind of the thing. Hey, but I do appreciate big families. I think it's good to have a lot of kids. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, isn't it?
I mean, have you seen what do they call it? Yeah, I mean, yeah, but the good thing is too is that a lot of times they're older kids. I think they have 2 older sons and 1 older daughter. They'll often help raise the kids too because they're kind of at the age where they can kind of take care of themselves. So they'll often help too.
Yeah.
Like what's that one family called? I forget. Like what are they called? They have like 19 kids or whatever. Like I forget TV show or whatever. Oh, I can never remember their names. What was it? But they had like 19 kids, and like I saw some clips of their reality TV show, and I can never remember their names, but yeah, I mean 19 kids, and then but what happened often times that the older children would help raising up the younger kids because hey, there's no way 2 parents can raise 19 kids. It's just not humanly possible. Actually, let me Google. I want to find out. I forget what they're called. Let me just Google it real quick. I'm trying to find. I forget what they're called, but they were like really popular among the conservative crowd in America. What are they called? It's kind of sad today though. Like you think about it, back in like back 100, 200 years ago, it was normal to have a lot of kids, but now today it's so not normal that where you can have a reality TV show today. That's how unnatural it is now today. Consider it unnatural. To where you can now have a reality TV show just by having a lot of kids. That's kind of the sad thing about it, though. What was it called? Yeah. I like my own reality. I want to have my own reality TV show. It'd be kind of fun. My own reality TV show. I'd like that. The Adventures and Life of John Craggan. That'd be funny.
Yeah. The Craggan, you could call it.
Yeah, I think I found it. I posted it. Yeah. If I was gonna I'd call it something cool like the life of a Slavic nationalist, because I do consider myself kind of a Slavic nationalist. So I'd say like the life of a Slavic nationalist or whatever, something like that. I want to like name it something cool or whatever, Yeah, I posted it in the I posted it in the lost my train of thought. I posted it in the YouTube chat. Oh, I'm blanking up for a second. I don't know why. But yeah, I think it is kind of sad though that how it's so uncommon to have a lot of kids where you can now have reality TV show by just having a lot of kids because it's just kind of a phenomenon now. But back 100 years ago, everyone had that. Yeah. Apparently, the family they were criticized for their stance on LGBT issues, and supposedly they were there was like they had this robocall where apparently it was like anti-transgender or whatever. It's like, yeah, sure. Like me personally, if someone calls me homophobic, I say, oh, whatever. I guess I am homophobic. I honestly don't care if I offend some LGBT freak or not. I mean, that's
what's to be frightened of?
Because here's the thing too is that, and here's the thing too is that, because I am a Slavic nationalist, I actually did some research into my own culture. Homosexuality is against Slavic culture too. Like you cannot be like historically like it's been against Slavic culture. So even if I was like still an atheist, I would still be against it just on the basis of it's against my culture to be with another dude in bed like that. So, and plus, like you look at places like Poland or Russia, I mean, it's like being like homosexuality is like very highly taboo in the Slavic European world. Like apparently, I read about one instance where apparently even in pre-Christian times, there were cases where men who were accused of homosexuality were literally drowned as a punishment, in even pre-Christian times.
Yeah,
in the Slavic European countries. Like if a man was engaging in gay sex, they would take him out and just drown him as punishment, basically. And this is in pre-Christian times too. Yeah. 19 kids and counting. Pretty.
Do you think that?
Yeah, I used to watch their.
Do you think that Russia's going to go nuclear with the Ukraine, John?
Was that?
Do you think?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if they did, it probably. The thing about Russia too is that their economy is not very good. So it's like the thing about that is that because Putin, I mean, Putin's like how much money does he have? He's like multi-billionaire, but basically, or I don't know how much he has. But basically, the thing is that if they did go nuclear, they probably would create such a firestorm that it wouldn't just be sanctions. There'd probably be like full-on war against Russia because.
Your audio keeps cutting out, John.
At the same time as well, Russia, they're the kind of, like, the thing about Russians is that, and this is kind of true. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm too far away from the mic. Let me check. The thing about Russia, too, is that Russia, they're the kind of people where they don't give up for anything. So it's like, it's hard to win a war against Russia because Germany learned that the hard way during World War II.
Well, nobody's ever won a war against Russia as such, have they?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all the empires, with the French Empire of Napoleon, none of them had ever beat Russia. I mean, part of the reason why, too, is just the winter of Russia is so cold, it often drives them away.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've actually heard a saying, too, that, I've actually heard a saying that the reason why Russia wins all these wars is just the winter always comes to their aid. Because, like for example, when Napoleon invaded Russia, apparently the winter is so bad and they didn't have proper winter clothing that he actually lost like half his army just by frostbite and hypothermia because they just couldn't handle. And then the Germans too, when they went to Russia, they actually had to halt the invasion because it got so cold one time where the tank engines just couldn't run, the guns couldn't fire, so they had to actually halt the invasion of Moscow because they had to just defrost all their equipment because it was so cold. So like Russia, like the Russian winter has always been kind of their main defense against an invading army. That's why every world empire was never able to defeat Russia, just because the winters are so brutal.
I think they started their invasion at the wrong time of year. They should actually have started it during winter. So that at the end of winter, they would have been far enough in to get there. But then it's a case of getting back in it or something.
And the thing is, too, is that when you're a Russian soldier, like you're trained and prepared. And that's the problem, too, is that when fighting Russia in the winter, like most of these empires, they're not like Russian soldiers. They're trained for like winter fighting. Like they're trained for and geared up for winter fighting. So they're not like they're hard bunch to beat because they're trained for winter fighting, which is a lot of these other people, they're not like used to winter fighting like that. Which is Russians, like they're trained in like winter fighting and that kind of stuff. I'm like, for example, I remember one time my parents, this is before I was even born, they actually went to Russia and they were saying it was so cold. They had like 3 coats on and all this other stuff. I mean, it was ridiculously cold. Like they were saying it got so cold that like their car engines were not running constantly. I mean, like the Russian winters, they're very brutal. And by the way, this is from Canadians. Like Canadians, like we're often seen as living in igloos, and even we can't handle the Russian winter. That's how bad it is.
I don't know if we should play that video on this stream, John. It's an hour long anyway, so.
Yeah, it's a full on documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a full on documentary. So it's funny just though that family that has 19 kids. Well, they sure took Be Fruitful and Multiply. They sure took it to a whole new level. Be Fruitful and Multiply.
Yeah. I'm surprised his wife didn't stop.
Hey, good for
I'm
them.
surprised his wife didn't stop at 10 or something. That's more than enough, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, based on what I read in their bio, they just firmly believe in Be Fruitful and Multiply. So that means like just have as many kids as you can while you're able to, I guess. Like I think their mentality was just keep having kids so you just feels like you're not able to.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny too, because when you have that many kids, they have to have this they live in this huge house. Because when you have like 19 kids, like you're gonna need a big house. Because you're gonna need like all these different bedrooms and all this other stuff. I mean, it's like so they had a pretty big house they live in too, because you kind of have to when you have that many kids. Wow. Oh. Ooh, it's freaking cold. It's so cold. I can actually see like the
You can actually
air
see
from
the air you're
ventilator.
breathing out.
So that's it's really cold. That's like out my window right now.
Are you okay for heating?
Well, no. I mean, the ventilator. The vent, yeah. Well, I mean, I can see the ventilator outside. I can see the air, like I'm not outside myself. I can just see the air from the ventilator. So that's so ridiculously cold it is outside. Oh man.
So you're still snowed in then, John?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm still pretty much snowed in. I mean, oh, I just got a comment from
What, somebody in the side chat?
outside. Someone just left a comment. I just quickly responded to them.
Oh, on your channel?
Yeah.
All right. Were they having a go at you?
No, it was actually someone who just was leaving some some constructive criticism, which I do appreciate that. I just responded to him saying, "Hey, thanks for the criticism."
Yeah, good chat we had last night, John. I don't know why the internet connection.
It was pretty. It was pretty edifying. Yeah.
I don't know why the internet connection isn't.
Yeah, it's
If I could only finish.
yeah, it's annoying how it does that.
Because it was pretty good last night. It wasn't a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good last night. I don't know what the problem is now.
Yeah. I'm just going to mute for a minute, John. I'll be back.
No problem. So I was just watching a clip of one of those episodes of 19 Kids and Counting. So
Episodes of
their
what?
friends invited their friends over, and there's a total of 40 people they had. Wow. It was one episode of that thing about 19 Kids and Counting with the family of 19 kids. Well, so some of their kids invited their friends over, and it amounted to a total of 40 people. 40 people in total they had over for a meal. That was funny. Because they're friends with so many of their own friends. That's the fun thing about having so many kids. When they invite all their friends over, it amounts to like what? How many? Several dozens of
How
individuals.
do you afford to feed 19 children though? And then there's Christmas.
I don't know. Yeah. But not just that. When they invite all their friends over, again, they had 40 people over. Wow. Yeah. I mean, like if you're gonna feed 40 people, that would be like what? How many thousands of dollars on groceries? I like me personally. I actually would love to know their secret how they raise so many kids. I personally want to know that. I mean, I don't plan on having kids. Am I muted? I thought. Oh no, I'm not muted. If I plan on having kids myself, which I most likely won't. I plan to remain celibate. But if I do have kids, I want to know how to raise just one of them.
Yeah.
Because I have a younger cousin and a younger brother I see quite a lot, and I can't even handle them. Let alone, I mean, I can't even handle my younger brother and younger cousin sometimes.
What's your younger brother like then?
He's so hyper a lot of times. Plus, he's 5 years younger than me, and my younger cousin is 6 or 7 years younger than me. But they're both like your typical teenagers. They just they just do a lot of stuff. I mean, they do the kind of they do the kind of stupid stuff I did when I was 14 and 13. Because believe me, when I was 14, I did a lot of dumb crap. I mean, I actually have some photos from when I was in grade 9 in high school. There was one photo of me where I'm just chubby cheeks smiling, where I had like bags of rockets and candy on my lap. I think I still have that photo on my phone, but it was me from grade 9. I was 15 years old in that photo. There was another photo I had from when I was also in grade 9, where my locker was just full of Fruitopia. Because I did a lot of dumb crap when I was in my first year of high school.
No.
Like, it was kind of funny. I saved that money for like years and years. I blew it all on candy, rockets, and Fruitopia. Yeah. Me personally, I mean, I think it's just regular for teenagers to do that kind of dumb stuff. But like me, I took it to a whole. I mean, when I was a teenager, I did like illegal things that I didn't even know were illegal, but I still did them. Like I broke laws that I didn't even know were even laws. Like all kinds of crazy. Like there was one time when I was in high school where I was walking across the street and a car, like some other idiot driving a car who was a student at school, nearly ran over my foot. That was another interesting thing that happened. I have so many crazy things I did in high school. I could just go on and on about it. Well, then there's another time where I was driving home from high school and the guy in front of me, his car breaks down. So then I had to go help him try to repair his tire. That was funny too. That was like a few months into my first year. That was pretty fun too. You gotta love that. Oh, then there's another time too where I went to Walmart and I bought a bunch of rockets, and then the security guard at Walmart thought I was stealing, and I had to fish through the garbage to get my receipt because I threw it out. So after that, I learned to throw out my receipts before I leave the store, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 14-year-old John Cragen was basically an idiot. That's what he was.
Oh. That noise you can hear there, John, it's me coffee maker. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No problem. No problem.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could get you.
You know what's kind of funny? I've said this. I'm. What was that?
I was thinking it'd be great if me, you, Aaron Deering, Matthew, Brad, 982 get together and sort of have a truce discussion in no man's land somewhere and just get it sorted out and get
yeah, that'd be kind of cool actually. Like
well, not sorted out. What am I thinking of? You know, because lies have been told about us, John, and it's not right. I mean, we should grin and bear it, as Scripture says.
Yeah, and there needs to be some repenting done of that too, basically.
Yeah, but
yeah. I mean, here's the thing: like if I falsely accuse somebody, I want them to tell me so that I can repent. You know what I mean? I mean, like there are times where I falsely accuse somebody, and then they told me, and I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. I repented that." You know?
Yeah.
Or for example, if I hurt somebody, if I wrong somebody, hey, just tell me how I wronged you, and I'll apologize and try to make it right. You know what I mean?
But they can't even do that, even when.
Like there was one time, where this I used to hang out with.
Matthew even knows that lies have been told about people by people, and yet he's not willing to do anything about that and put it straight.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he's told anybody off for it.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of the thing too. Is that that the thing is too is that is that one of the biggest things is that because humans, we're just like you could say that humans, we're just prideful by natural. I mean, like it's just within our nature to just want to blame someone else for our problems. You know what I mean? Like it's just mentally hard for us to kind of just accept responsibility. Maybe that's not true for everybody, but like you see that just in general. Like for example, you see black people in the ghettos, they blame whites for all their problems when really like the father shouldn't be leaving home. But like it's just natural for someone to want to blame somebody else. So the problem is too is that it just comes down to pride, where you just don't want to admit to your own faults. It's just our human nature. You always want to find somebody else to blame, or you want to try to shift the blame away from yourself if you do something wrong. I mean, I've been guilty of that quite a lot too.
It's never pleasant, John.
I mean, I think every human being has ever existed. I think every human being ever existed at some point of their lives try to blame somebody else for their problems. I mean, at least some point, because it's within our nature.
Well, it's never pleasant to have to admit that you're wrong. If you've been wrong, and then to apologise, repent. But it's the only thing to do.
Yeah, well, because it just kind of hurts.
It's the only thing to do if you want to grow in life. Because you can't lie against the truth. It doesn't help.
Yeah, and you definitely can't lie against the Holy Ghost too. I mean, when Ananias did that with Satan, when Satan caused Ananias to lie against the Holy Ghost in Acts 5, well, look what happened to him.
Yeah, but lying about a brother Christian.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing too, is that when you're saved, you have to realize that you can't hide anything from God. Like He knows everything you're doing. Like you can hide. Like you can live a double life on camera, but you can't hide from God. Like He knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can't. And then whatever you do is going to be brought up if at the judgment seat if needs be. And the thing is too, I've even heard it said too that if you try to cover your own, there's actually a scripture on that. If you try to cover your own sins, God's going to expose it to everybody. But if you confess and forsake your sins and repent, then you've done the right thing this way. Then actually, let me try to find that verse. Actually, I think it's in Proverbs. Is it, or is it not Proverbs? What is it? It was, here it is. It's Proverbs chapter 28, verse 13. It says, "He that covereth his sins shall not prosper, but whoso confesseth and forsaketh them shall have mercy." So it's that simple. When you try to cover your own sin, try to cover it up, like the Catholics trying to cover up the sex abuse. I guess like God will blow the lid off that. But if you confess and repent, guess what? You've done the right thing, and God's not going to,
But it's for their benefit, and the person who's been lied about, they can at least have a basic amount of respect for the other guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, I've said some unfortunate things.
Yeah.
I do get angry. It does take a bit of doing to get me angry. I mean, I haven't.
Yeah. Well, hey, too. Like there are times too where like for example, my pride might get hurt, and I'll say something very nasty, and then later I just regret it because hey, because it's just our flesh. It's just our flesh that causes us to do that. Really, when you get down to it,
yeah, it's a way of
just
just making
just not want to
just making yourself feel better at the time, isn't it? So something like that.
Yeah, but then of course I found whenever I do it, I feel better temporarily, but then after a while, like what happens to me whenever I do it is that, and I've been guilty of this occasion too, where I'll do it and I'll feel better for like a few minutes, and after a while, I just feel a lot of guilt after that.
The problem is, I mean, I've learned this over the years,
because there's even saying, I know it's kind of I know it's even kind of worldly.
I've learned this over years that people who get saved, Christians, brothers and sisters, none of them are perfect or were perfect or are perfect when they got saved. And we have to deal with not just other Christians, but the unbelievers as well. And sometimes Christians behave like unbelievers.
And the thing is, too, is that we can't expect unbelievers to try to adhere to our
No.
Yeah, and the problem is, too, is that when you're dealing with unbelievers, like, you can't expect unbelievers to adhere to like biblical morality. That's the thing, too. Like for example, if I go to work and I can't expect them to do that. Like, so if I hear someone cussing, using profanity, I could, like if I see that, I'll say, hey, can you not say that around me? But really, if they say, well, I'm going to keep doing it regardless, I can't really do much at that point because I can't expect them to adhere to my values.
No. Why should they?
Because that's kind of the thing that makes Christianity distinct from things like Islam or Catholicism, is that Christian morality, it only applies to Christians. Like, we don't try to force that on if you understand the scripture. I mean, there's some that try to do that, but if you understand scripture, you know that we're not supposed to enforce it on non-believers. But with Islam or Catholicism, like, their standards of morality apply to everybody who lives under that system of governance, regardless if you're Muslim or Catholic or not. Basically, that's kind of the big difference.
Yeah, that Catholic guy, the Fro who came in last night, he's always calling me a moral degenerate, a moral slug, a moral.
Wow.
What is it? A moral dumpster.
Well, I do find that I will say this. I do find that a bit ironic that a Catholic is saying it of all people, considering the fact that his church. I will find it. I just find it ironic when I hear Catholics try to take some kind of moral, or try to compare their church with morality. I mean, I just find it really funny, considering the fact that their priests, first of all, they can't marry, they can't reproduce, and a lot of them get busted touching little boys and all that other stuff. But then they try to take a moral high ground. I find that really laughable, in my opinion.
Where is the word morality in Scripture? It's not there.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you find morality? I mean, morality. I've heard one, like Jason. Yeah, Jason Cooley, he said that morality is just Satan's counterfeit to godly values. Basically, morality is like, it's a very broad term. Like, atheists, they'll say, well, hey, being pro this and pro that, being pro abortion, that's morality. You know what I mean? Like morality is a very broad term. It can mean all kinds of things. Like, really, when you get down to it, morality is just simply subjective to the person who defines it. You know what I mean? When you get down to it, there is no like definite morality. Like, everyone's morality is different. Like, for example, I'll put it this way. Over in my home country, like over in Slavic countries, Slavic morality would be very different from, let's say, liberal atheist values. Because in Slavic culture, like, it's very conservative. Women dress modestly.
Yeah,
I think like Slavic morals would be defined very differently than what we call atheist secular morals.
I think morality, John, is just a survival technique, really, and it's called morality. If you got like a little community together, and you put them on an island big enough for them all to survive, and tell them that the only people that there wouldn't be any genetic mess ups, with children and stuff, right? But in order for them to survive, they'd have to make up rules in order to do so. And I think one of the first ones would be, let's not kill each other, chaps. Let's not covet somebody else's wife or donkey, and we'll survive, because it is a way of surviving. And I think
exactly,
that seems to be at the root of what these evolutionists Buddhists and whatever call morality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
something like that.
Well, I think it's too. There's even verse. I think it's Romans chapter 2, verse 14 and 15. It says the law of God's written, like even when you're a Gentile, the law of God's written in your hearts. Like why do you think so many cultures, like even for example, there's cases where like in Hindu countries where if you commit adultery, like they'll force you to take a ritual bath of purification. Or there are some cases where, for example, even in the Aztec Empire, people who commit adultery were often decapitated. So it's like the law of God is written in their hearts, even if you're lost.
Yeah.
So it's like people just naturally know certain things are wrong. It's like you talk to any, like there's actually a Hindu monk. His name is Yogi Adityanath. He's also a politician too in India. Well, he openly came out and said that if he was in charge, Hindu men who commit adultery will be severely punished. So why? Because the law is written in his heart, basically. He just naturally knows it's wrong.
I mean, morality.
Like he was an atheist.
Morality is almost like a common sense approach to life, a sort of philosophy. Yeah. It is wisdom, I think. But how would you define
well, I mean, it's like you just naturally know, hey, don't. It's like the thing is like thou shalt not. It's the kind of things where thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. Those are just natural things to do. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. It's just natural. You just know not to do that.
Yeah. Because I think that's wired into us, even when we're born, John.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, even when you're wrong, like even when I was young, I just always knew that, hey, if it doesn't belong to you, just don't take it. You just know that naturally. And there are some cultures too where if you're caught stealing, they'll chop your arm off, and that kind of stuff. If you're caught stealing,
yeah,
like there's some that take it to an extreme. Like for example, over in Afghanistan, when the Taliban controlled it back in 1990s, like even just petty thieves, they had their hands chopped off. The one that was used to steal.
The fact that they had that law that if you steal, you're going to lose your hand, and even today they still have to cut people's hands off. That should be a clue that that particular law just isn't working.
Yeah,
it's not working, is it?
Well, that's the thing too. Is that yeah. Well, the thing is too is that the Islamic law, like in the Bible, you read in the Old Testament Levitical law, the punishment for stealing was you basically have to pay back what you stole. So that was the punishment for stealing. But under Islamic law, the punishment was that the hand you basically used to steal would be chopped off, basically.
Yeah.
That's under most Islamic countries. Instead of just paying back what you stole, which is what the Bible says you do. I just think it's pretty creative though. So the hand that you use to steal will be chopped off, so you can't use the hand, but you can still use the other hand to steal stuff.
Yeah. Controlling people is a bit like herding cats. Have you ever tried herding cats, John?
No, I've seen it happen before, and it's pretty hard.
What?
I've never done it myself though.
What do you mean herding cats? You've never done it before?
Herding cats or cattle? What do you mean? Oh, I've seen it happen, but I've never done it myself though. I've just seen it happen.
John,
I have one cat though.
Yeah, I was going to say you can't herd cats, John. It's impossible. What are you doing there?
Well, the problem with cats too is that they're not like dogs. I was just moving the screwdriver out of the way. The problem with cats too is that unlike dogs, cats are not like they won't listen to you. Cats just do their own thing. Like dogs, like you can train a dog to actually obey you, but with a cat, they just do their own thing. And when they want you, they'll come to you.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, my cat's name is Boa, and but he won't respond to his name. I mean, like in his mind, when he needs me, he'll just come to me and start meowing. But like he just has a mind of his own. That's the thing about cats, is that they just do their own thing. Which dogs, they actually will that you can train them to obey you.
How long have you had Boa now, John?
Had him for about roughly 2 years now, actually.
Yeah.
Roughly 2 years.
I might get a cat, one that looks at me.
How we got him was that Yeah.
I'd like to get a cat, one that looks at me like I'm stupid. Because most cats look at you like that anyway, don't they?
Yeah. Well, my cat is doing that to me right now. Actually, I'm not even joking.
Is your cat looking at you like you're stupid?
There was actually
John?
there was okay. This is one funny story. There was one time where there was one time where he's looking at me like oh yeah, but well I guess you could call it that. But there was actually one funny time where I actually was laying down, and then you know what happened is that I felt something stroking my head. I'm thinking, what is that? And it was the cat licking my hair.
Oh yeah.
So then I realized that. So I lift my head up. He actually puts his paw on my head and pushes my head back down. Yeah, I'm joking. So so when I try to lift my head up, he puts his paw on my head and pushes my head back down and keeps licking my head. So
yeah,
that was funny. And then I googled it why, and apparently when cats do that, it's mostly because they're trying to clean you. Apparently, so apparently
because he cares about you.
Reason, so he felt the need to clean me.
He cares about you.
That is true. Yeah, I just think it was kind of cute that when I tried to lift my head up, he puts his paw on my head and pushes my head back down. That was pretty cute actually when he did that. But that is true. Like when cats do that, it basically means they care about you and they like you, because they don't do that if they don't like you. That's fine. I think it's kind of funny too how the cat felt the need to basically clean me up. That was kind of cute actually. How the cat feels. I just kind of put up with it, and of course I wash my hair later on because I don't want to have his stuff in my hair. But I just let him do it. Just let him show affection towards me. So because it's how you kind of build a relationship too with the cat. there was one funny time as well where I was sleeping and I woke up and the cat is like sitting on my chest just staring at me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I wake up and all I see is these two big eyes just staring at me. I'm like, whoa, I should get shocked for a second. And then it's just the cat. He's like sitting on my chest, just staring at me as I wake up.
Yeah.
Like and facing towards me too, by the way. And it's funny too because I think the cat managed to figure out when I still have my night shift job. The cat at one point managed to actually figure out my routine. So he actually figured out approximately when I arrive home. So he'll be waiting by the door when I get home because he wasn't doing that beforehand. But I think eventually he just figured out my routine. And then now every time at that approximate time, he would just wait by the door and then he would always be there.
Yeah. They have a...
Because I actually read that cats can be pretty intelligent. I mean, they can learn things. They can be pretty intelligent.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're not daft. Have you learned any survival?
Yeah, and I found that they can like, yeah. Go ahead.
Have you learned any survival skills?
Not much. I mean, basically, if I ever got into a situation, my biggest advantage would just be my brute physical strength. I mean, because I managed to build that up just by doing by all my years of doing physical labor, plus going to the gym as well. So it would just be my brute. So like if I, for example, had to go, let's just say I was walking down the street and I got jumped by a bunch of thugs, my main advantage would just be my brute physical strength. Really. Like for example, I'm the kind of person where I do know a bit of martial arts. Like I used to practice, what was it called, Al-Qaeda or whatever, which is basically like a self-defense martial art. But if I ever got into a fight, I would fight dirty, and just my advantage would not be my martial arts, but just simply just my brute physical strength, and I would just fight dirty basically. If I ever was in a situation like that.
Yeah. Can you hear that noise outside?
No, I can't. No.
All right, that's okay then.
No, I don't hear any noise.
Well, sometimes you get people walking past you like midnight onwards, swearing their heads off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because I live in an area that is like pretty ghetto, but like almost no crime happens though. Like I live in a kind of area where you assume a lot of crime happens, but it's like nothing happens.
I'd like to live in Canada or Alaska somewhere. Right up north, though. Obviously, I wouldn't want snow all year round, but I would love to be just snowed in with a log fire, cup of tea, and me pooch, and just listen to the silence.
Yeah, I mean that would
Yeah. Nobody to bother you.
I mean, if I was going to move somewhere, I probably would just move into my family cottages because we actually rent them out. We often would rent them out during the summer so we can make some extra bucks. But I mean, if I ever wanted to, I would just like my mom said, I could just move into one of them and just basically like be a permanent renter there.
Yeah.
Of course, I'd have to pay the bill of $800 per month, but who cares?
That's a lot. Oh, 800. That's about. Is that a lot? Is it, John?
It's actually cheaper. It's actually cheap compared to most cottages in that area. We actually are pretty cheap compared to most of them in the area. Plus, too, it's by the biggest freshwater beach in all of North America. So there's that advantage. Like it's literally like right across the street from the biggest freshwater beach in North America.
Yeah. Oh, that's the what do they call that place up in Canada? There's a lot of islands in that bit, isn't there?
It's a Sable Beach. It's at Sable Beach, and like of course before I had my night shift job, I would obviously go up there during my summer holidays. But it's kind of funny. This like last summer was probably the first summer I never spent up there because because that was when I began my job. So it was kind of funny because because it was kind of funny. Like it never occurred to me that once you're done school, you don't get summer vacations anymore. You don't get 2 months off during summer. It never occurred to me that. So I'm like, oh, so when my family's going to go to the college, I'm like, hey, wait, let me pack to you. Like, wait, you have work. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. I don't have summer vacation. I'm done school.
Yeah.
So of course they left me behind, but oh well. And of course, it was too early for me to request time off too, because I think I had to be there for at least 3 months before I was eligible to like request
for a holiday
time off, like paid time off too, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, because how Walmart works is that I think like there's when you first are working at Walmart, there's a 3-month probationary period to where essentially they're just trying you out. It's like you're still hired and they're still paying you, but they're just trying you out, or they're seeing if they want to keep you on. And then after that 3 months,
I didn't realize
full on employee, you get all the benefits and everything else. But like, from what I understand, I
didn't realize they had Walmart in Canada. I thought it was all what's that Canadian trading company, the biggest one over there now. I thought it was all Canadian stuff, but obviously you've got
Walmart. I think Walmart actually was started in Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Oh, was it?
I could be wrong, but I think Walmart actually was started in Canada. Actually, no, never mind. It was started. No, I was thinking of something else. Because I used to do co-op. So basically in Ontario high schools, Ontario, Canada, high schools require you to have require you to have do a co-op courses to basically I think pass. So I used co-op is basically where like it's like you're working for a company but you're there as a student. So basically I did co-op at Shoppers Drug Mart, and that was the company I was thinking of because they were founded in Canada. And it's funny too because I was doing co-op before all the. I was doing this like pre-COVID, so I actually kind of missed working without all these stupid restrictions because I started doing co-op pre-COVID.
Yeah, try not to mention that subject on here, John.
Hang on, I'm just gonna mute myself. I'm gonna get some breakfast. I haven't had any yet. I'm just gonna mute myself real quick. I'll be back in maybe 10 minutes. I'll be back in maybe 10 minutes or whatever. Just haven't had any breakfast yet.
Okay, John.
1 sec. Yeah, I'll be back maybe 10, maybe 5 or not 10, 15
yeah,
minutes.
don't rush your breakfast. I'll be okay. I'll be still here.
What was that?
I'll still be here, John.
Oh yeah. The funny thing is that whenever I wake up, I always have like no appetite till hours and so.
Here's a short clip. I mentioned this to John in conversation with John earlier. This is Bryan Denlinger and his attitude to the IFB, Independent Fundamentalist Baptists. It's only a short clip.
I mean, it gets to a point, honestly, if you're deceived by the new IFB, if you're in it and you're saying, oh, I don't see a problem with it, you know what? You deserve the deception, all right? You deserve to have problems. You deserve to have your children preyed upon. 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 You deserve to have your children preyed upon.
That's Bryan for you. Yeah, John's having his breakfast. I'm just waiting for him to come back. Have I got any other video clips that might be of interest? Got loads of them that I've kept over the years. Yeah, they're too long to put on. I might upload all of these. Maybe not. I don't know. You meet some, well, you don't meet them, but you come across some characters on YouTube, don't you? I wonder if he's still live streaming. Probably is. Yeah. When did he start that? Oh, he's been at it 2 hours. Check out this clip here. I can't remember.
Things that you call people, do you find that justifiable? Do you find it Christ-like? I'm not saying that everyone struggles with words.
Here's Ben again.
Sorry about the clock.
Hold on.
Dave. Here, everyone mute, but this guy, please, because I want him to be able to say.
That's Ben. Ben, why are you doing this again? It's Ben from the UK.
Oh, you know him, Dave? Oh, you know him? Oh, I didn't know.
Here. He goes up and down. Ben likes to. He got kicked out of Diamond Dustification's room now, and now he's mad. And he comes in and out. He's sometimes your friend and sometimes your enemy. He wants to tell us how we're sinning, and he's not. And how
no,
Dave, no. That's
Ben,
not
it. Because no, let me explain. Because I know that each and every single one of us struggle in some type of area. I know I have. I know that many people on this board have here. But what I don't find funny and what I don't find very clever is what Smokey and other people here tend to call people, coming out with words that not even Christ came out with, calling women whores, calling women slags, calling women bitches. Find me in scripture where Jesus Christ himself called any women of those names. You won't find that.
Does it have to be Jesus, or could it be the prophets that did it?
I'm talking about Jesus. I'm talking about Jesus.
So only Jesus? So I can't use prophetic? Okay, I can't use prophetic. I guess I have to cut out the Old Testament. All right.
Only the red letters.
Show me where the prophets. Show me in what context. What context did the prophets use the word whore?
Oh, sure. Here we go. Absolutely. Here we go. Let's go to Ezekiel.
The Bible does say about the.
Have you ever actually read the Bible? Have you ever actually read?
Of course, I have. The Bible does say about the whoredoms, but it's in reference to Jerusalem and the cities and how they departed from God.
You evidently didn't read the Torah. You didn't read the Torah. Go read Deuteronomy. He only reads the red letter Bible.
Find me where women find me where men like you, Smokey, who I think is unsaved and does not have the Holy Spirit in him, because I don't see that. Many will watch you.
There's where this is going on. Ben, hold it. Ben, you're judging.
Yeah, he is.
And Dave, do you?
Are you judging a man?
My heart and my
wait a minute. You're judging a man. You're judging a man who's righteous.
Do you think it's fair to people?
Yes, I think it's great to call. And I call you one too. You're a fucking.
Even though I'm not black. You people are.
I don't give a shit. I'm a nigger. I'm called nigger by my nigger friends. Hey, nigger, what up? And I'm saying, what up? And he laughs.
I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ.
And we all laugh.
I want you to smoke.
In the name of Jesus Christ, Ephesians 4:29.
Oh, in the name of Jesus Christ. I rebuke you in the name of the real Jesus Christ. How's that? Not the Woodstock.
I have the real Jesus Christ. You don't have him. You may know this.
Get out of here. Go fellowship with believers. Why are you here? Why are you here? We're unbelievers. Do not fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. Now you've reproved us over and over again. We reject this bullshit. Now go away and preach to someone who gives a shit, or I'll auction you now until next year.
Hold on.
Well, I had a verse that he apparently didn't want to talk about, Deuteronomy 23, verse 17. If somebody'd want to put that on the screen, I put it in the back private chat. It says, Deuteronomy 23, verse 17, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite among the sons of Israel. If he takes exception to the use of whore, slag, bitch, and slut, number one, the Scripture 7 is all over Bill Cuthbert's channel, and the things Bill Cuthbert has said about his wife being a cock-sucking dumb whore when she's not around are atrocious. But number two, the Bible itself translates that word whore, referring to someone that would whore themselves out, someone that disregarded the commandment not to covet and the commandment not to commit adultery.
was about. Just check it. I'll get rid of that. I thought I had audio on it and stuff. Got hundreds of videos here. Oh, meow. 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 Oh, all right, John, have you fed?
I just come in and the cat starts meowing.
The cat what?
Yeah, the cat stole my chair too. The cat stole my chair.
He's in charge, John. You need to bear that in mind.
I guess you could hear him meowing because the mic was like right in front of him.
Yeah. Do you remember this, John? Just remember that your cat is in charge there. Yeah.
What was that?
Why do you keep going deaf when I tell you that your cat is in charge over there?
Huh?
Okay, let me repeat the question. Why do you?
Oh yeah. Well, you got a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you keep going deaf when I tell you that your cat is in charge? Right. Do you remember this, John? Bryan Denlinger on Babies in the Womb.
The big things that are coming up with this conspiracy is my stands against rock music and my stands against video games. And these brethren are saying, I'll say it this way, that these guys are saying it's a liberty issue. Doesn't matter. It's not a liberty issue. It's not a liberty issue. And I am speaking. I have to become a fool in glory. I'm speaking from experience. I know how bad those things are and how they mess you up. I know. I spent years doing both. I come from a family that my oldest brother was a Christian rock guy, had a band. We went to his concerts. I saw what that music did to his children when they were in the womb, and his wife was at the concerts and everything. I saw what it's done to him since then. With this conspiracy is my stands against rock music and my stands against video games. And these brethren are saying, I'll say it this way, that these guys are saying it's a liberty issue. Doesn't matter. It's not a liberty issue. It's not a liberty issue. And I am speaking. I have to become a fool in glory. I'm speaking from experience. I know how bad those things are and how they mess you up. I know. I spent years doing both. I come from a family that my oldest brother was a Christian rock. It's not a liberty issue. And I am speaking.
You go to. Do you hear that, John? He knows what it did. What was it you said about those babies in the womb?
He knows what it did to George.
Yeah.
He knows what it did to them in the womb. Yeah.
And he didn't want to admit that his brother, Tom, was a rock star, a Christian rock star. He didn't want to use that word star.
Yeah. I wonder why.
Because his brother is the polar opposite of Bryan. Okay, his beginnings, Tom Denlinger. Okay, rock. I mean, I'm not keen on rock anyway.
Me neither.
But it was a Christian rock band, apparently. But what he did with his money, he spent his own money on building like I think it's Alaska somewhere. Like projects for young people to get involved in Bible study weekends, campfires, the sort of stuff.
The actual edifying biblical stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming that, but
biblical in the sense where you're actually interacting with people, not just hiding out in the woods somewhere.
That's it. Yeah, that's the point, really. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like when you're a minister, you're actually you're supposed to actually interact with the people you're ministering to. You're not supposed to just isolate yourself in the middle of the woods.
Well, he had all sorts of building projects for them to get involved in, and like the usual sort of outdoor activities, Bible study groups, and I thought it was brilliant. What a breath of fresh air in contrast to Bryan. I mean, Bryan's wanting $50,000 now, isn't he?
Yeah, and for what, another property or something? I mean, he already got 2 different properties at least.
Yeah.
I just find it funny how a guy who makes videos somehow needs all these different properties, all this other stuff that really has nothing to do with ministry. It's just his personal use.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you need this 20-ton, 16-wheel military truck for ministry?
You don't.
It's
as far as I know. I mean, if he'd have been using it for moving large amounts of logs, well, even that wouldn't make sense because all you need is a decent Land Rover and a big trailer with sides on it. You can move all your logs.
I'll say it this way, okay? Obviously the logs and all that stuff, but I'll say it this way. Let's just say that. Let's just say I'll put it this way. Let's just say that America became an Islamic caliphate. Okay, just a random example. They became an Islamic caliphate. Islam is the official religion, and if you're not Muslim, you're going to be rounded up. And it became essentially what Christians go through in Nigeria, where every single day they're being attacked by jihadists and Muslims. Then you use that military truck. Maybe you form a Christian militia to kind of defend yourself, and use that truck to transport fighters to wherever. But America's nowhere near that.
No.
I mean, if I had a military truck and I had to start a Christian militia to fight against some Islamic government that took over, I would use it to transport fighters to various battles or whatever. You know what I mean? Those trucks are meant to transport troops across all terrain type areas.
Yeah. Well, if I had a truck like that, I think I'd build some accommodation in the back.
Same here.
And I'd put a trailer on the back for stuff.
Yeah, because those trucks are meant to transport troops, and they're also meant for all terrain type stuff too. So it's I would definitely add some accommodations to those things too.
If you ever get a chance to get your own vehicle, John, get one of those old British Army Land Rovers.
I definitely want to. I was even saying too, even when I was 16, when I was eligible, because in Canada you have to at least be 16 to get a license. I was thinking, when I ever do buy a car, I want it to be like an all-terrain type vehicle where I can drive all over the place, not just limited to roads and stuff.
Well, those British Army Land Rovers will go just about anywhere.
Yeah. The reason why I want all-terrain is because basically my mom. Her van, the van we have, it's not all terrain. I think it does have somewhat a 4-wheel drive, but it's hard because it's first of all, it's if you're going to live in a country like Canada, that you're going to want an all terrain vehicle, especially for winter. Which and the funny thing is too is that immigrants who come to Canada who are from warmer countries who are not used to this kind of weather, they're often the ones that have the most problems because they don't buy a vehicle meant for that kind of weather. But basically, they there was one time where we were visiting my family on my mom's side of the family, and they have their own cottage too. They actually built their own cottage, so it was pretty cool actually. They actually built their own thing. Well, basically, what happened was that it's down this big, huge hill, which was almost all ice. And what happened was that we actually had to stop the van at the top of the hill, and my uncle had to come down from his truck at the bottom of the hill with his all-terrain vehicle to come pick us up with our luggage because her van was just not meant for that kind of stuff. And I was telling her, you should have bought the kind of Jeep my dad used to have because it would have meant for that. But
you need a vehicle. You need a vehicle that you can repair yourself, John.
Yeah, that too. And I also want a vehicle that has 4-wheel drive as well, especially for the winters.
Yeah. But all the British Army Land Rovers have that.
Yeah.
You won't get a brand new one, obviously. Or you could, I suppose. Yeah. But if you get an old retired British Army Land Rover, they're pretty sturdy.
Yeah, the thing also too is that that because my mom's van, it was pretty light, so it was very easily able to basically if she tried to go down the hill, we would never be going back up because the hill is just way too icy for her van. So basically, of course, and plus my uncle is actually much better of a driver. He actually is used to that kind of stuff, so he actually So and of course, and because they live in the woods, so there's no snow plows. So, but that was kind of the situation where I realized, okay, if I buy a car, I want it to be all terrain and 4-wheel drive, so I won't have this kind of problem.
Yeah.
Because my mom, she's kind of, I mean, no hard on her, like not to be hard on her, but she is kind of more of like a city person, which is me. I'm kind of more the person where I wouldn't mind living out in the wilderness. In fact, I used to love camping so much. I still love camping now, but it's kind of funny. I used to love it so much that when we would stay at our cottage, I actually would set up a tent out in the front yard and sleep out there instead of in the cottage because I just love doing it so much. And my mom would always, wonder why, but that's how much I love doing it. I've always been kind of like I've always been the kind of person where I just where I don't like, I just don't like, the city. I'm the kind of person where if I could just, like again, I would set up a tent in the front property, a front yard of the cottage, and sleep out there when my mom stayed in the cottage. And I wouldn't even care how cold it was outside. I just like doing it so much. I just did it.
Yeah. I mean, you could live in a tent out in the woods in Canada, John.
Yeah.
It would be, you'd have to make extra preparations as opposed for the winter.
Yeah.
But a tent, you could live in a tent in winter. I mean,
and plus too, like there are some tents that I found at Walmart that actually have like thermal type, lining around them. So like there are some tents where they're meant for like winter camping.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny. There was one time where I went camping with my dad. It was just me and him, I guess father-son time out or whatever. And we basically were camping. What happened was that we brought the tent. Well, apparently the tent we had, it was missing like a ton of pieces. So we tried like hours to set it up. And like, oh wait, we're missing a bunch of pieces. So we had to basically we had to stay in the car. We had to sleep in. And it's funny because our van was not really meant for that. We just slept in our van. So we had to just like find some way to just set up a mattress. It was kind of funny actually that it just didn't work out, but. It was kind of funny because also, I don't know. I just when we did sleep in the van, I just kind of felt like this isn't proper. I want to be out in the tent, but oh well.
Jeff, so are you coming in, Jeff?
Oh, he's in the car. I just noticed that right now. He's in the. How are you?
I'll put a link in, Jeff, for you to come in if you want. But the thing you can do with a tent, John, out in the middle of the woods, put your tent up and you can build a wooden frame over the top of it.
Yeah.
Put turf on and you can protect your tent that way, can't you?
Yeah. I just remember going to Walmart and seeing tents that have like thermal, like a type of thermal inner lining to where because if I was going to go camping, if I was going to go camping all year round, I would need a tent that would be obviously designed for winter camping as well.
Yeah.
Oh, Alex Canis, he says he grew up 31 miles east of Waco. Are you referring to Waco, Texas, where that thing went down with the FBI?
Oh, what a mess that was.
Yeah, wasn't that was like a month-long standoff they had, or like several month-long standoff they had with those people?
I think that had been set up from the beginning, John.
I think so too. Well, it's kind of funny thing. The thing about the Waco group in general is that they basically were a cult within a cult because basically. Like the Seventh-day Adventists, they're already a cult themselves, but then they were actually a cult within the Seventh-day Adventists, so they were a cult within a cult. Basically, it was kind of fun. It was kind of interesting the situation there, but basically from what I know, I don't really know a whole lot about the situation, but basically from what I know about the situation, apparently they had like a lot of guns in that area, so the FBI came like full force because these people had a lot of guns, and then I guess it was a big standoff they had, and but then that situation was actually. I heard one of the inspirations for the Oklahoma City bombing because that was the kind of thing where people were paranoid about the government taking over and everything.
Yeah, but it's interesting that apparently all of Bill Clinton's ex-bodyguards were killed in that incident.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, and fun fact too, Bill Clinton was trained I think didn't he go to a Jesuit university or a high school?
Something like that. Bill Clinton, he's involved with getting drugs smuggled into Mena Airport.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
No.
Doesn't surprise me one bit. I mean, that's the thing is that well, and I even heard too that remember when Bill Clinton basically fornicated with one of his interns or whatever in the White House, and what happened was I think Hillary, she wanted to basically divorce him over that, and hey, rightfully so. He's I mean if I would do the same thing if I were her, but I think what happened was that I heard something about the Jesuits actually like told her, hey, if you stay with them, whatever. I don't know the whole situation. I just remember hearing that there was some kind of Jesuit that like basically made her stay with him for future benefits or whatever. because she wanted. I heard that she wanted to actually divorce him over that when she found out he basically fornicated with that intern.
I want to know, John. I don't know if you've done any research on it, because people say, oh, just because somebody's been to a Jesuit university, like Fordham or Georgetown, doesn't mean that they're Jesuit. But unless the Jesuit has trusted you in some way, or if you were connected, you wouldn't get into a Jesuit university.
That's true, yeah. But Alex Canis also pointed out in the comment section, he said that the Koresh, that was the guy's name, Koresh, who ran the whole cult there. He said that he considered himself to be God or Jesus, from what I heard. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I definitely heard that he definitely had some kind of like complex about himself, where he thought he was like special or whatever.
I don't know. It might just be propaganda.
Yeah. But either way, even though like what the FBI did was pretty bad, but either way, they still were a cult either way. I mean, they still were this like really weird. They were, again, a cult within a cult, because the Seventh-day Adventists themselves are already a cult.
I think the problem is really they had too many. Well, I don't know about too many, but they had a lot of firearms there.
Yeah, that was why the standoff. That was why the standoff was so long and so tense, because they had a lot of guns in that area, and they were heavily armed. And
it gave the authorities the excuse, didn't it? Really?
Yeah, that's the thing, dude. They gave authorities because they knew that these people could actually put up a pretty good fight with all the guns they had, so they gave them kind of an excuse to just go full force on them.
But the problem is, you see, I mean, some Americans wouldn't agree, but I would, if I was living over there and I was armed to the teeth, I would never tell anybody what weapons I had, how much ammunition I had, or anything like that. I'd let people find out last.
Well, that's the thing too, is that there are some Americans that because think about America is that there are over 100 million like guns owned by people in America, and the thing about that is that if there ever was going to be like a gun grab, they would actually have a hard time doing it. Because I heard a poll one time that at least 2/3 of the military would not go along with it, and they would just quit the military if that ever happened. And not to mention all the police officers that would quit too. So they would lose a lot. And then the ones that would still enforce it, I actually read a poll that most gun owners would actually shoot at people that try to take their guns. I mean, I read a poll. And my friend Bob Islam, he himself can attest to that. He said he himself would actually shoot at authorities that try to take his guns away. So he was saying too that a gun grab would be impossible to enforce, because 2/3 of the military would quit, and then the gun owner, like most of the gun owners, would.
Over there though, John, I think there's more than 100 million guns over there.
I think there's more guns than there are people in America, from what I last heard. But basically, from what I read in the polls is that the majority of gun owners would actually shoot at the authorities that try to take their guns away. Like if they went door to door gun confiscation, they would be shot at by the people with the guns. So that's why it would be impossible to enforce. Yeah. Like essentially what I heard is that they'd send in, like, let's say like a couple thousand cops to enforce gun control, and then most of them would just come back in body bags because they would shoot at people that tried to. That's the thing too. That's why gun control has always been the means of communists and that kind of stuff to take control, because you can't oppress the population when they're armed. Like China or North Korea couldn't do what they do if everybody was armed.
No, they couldn't. Yeah.
In fact, during World War II, after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, Japan was actually planning on doing like a ground invasion of America. Like they were planning on invading America, but then they decided against it because one of their generals actually said that in America there's a gun behind every blade of grass, meaning like the American people. Like they won't just have to worry about the military; they'd have to fight the American people with all their guns too. So that was actually why Japan never did decide, because they were going to invade America, but then they decided against it just because of how many gun owners are.
And it's too big a country anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, because think about the Japanese, is that the Japanese, they were like a very fanatical like warmongering military. I mean, they were the kind of people where they like if their plane was going down, they would fly their plane into your ship to try to do as much damage as possible. But even they were saying we can't invade America because like most of the population has their own weapons. So like they would, I actually heard that like someone say that America is essentially uninvadable, not because of the military, but just because of the American people with all their guns.
Yeah. But most Americans are dumb.
Yeah. Well, it definitely is true that if the gun grab, like if Joe Biden ever did try to enforce a gun grab, there would be some people that would hand over their guns. But I heard that most of the gun owners would actually not comply, and they actually would shoot at the authorities that tried to take their guns away.
Yeah. And it would be especially hard for them to do it in a city, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like New York or Chicago.
And also considering the fact too that, like I said, the polls would show, like the polls I read show that at least 2/3 of the military would just quit when given those orders. They say, well, we're not going to do this, and they would just quit. So not only would you lose 2/3 of your military just by quitting, and chances are those 2/3 of the military would likely join the gun owners and fighting back. So you it would be impossible to enforce. And here's the thing: even with the military, even if you did have the whole full-on military, like the American military has about 1 million. Like 1 million like man army. Well, the American people, there's over 100 million gun owners, so like you're outnumbered by like 100 to 1. So like even just like you still have no chance of doing it.
I don't know how many they've got in the military.
But last time I checked, the American military has like from what I last heard, they have, in terms of just manpower, they have the biggest military in the world, which they have roughly about 1 million or something soldiers. But like that doesn't compare to the 200 plus million gun owners.
But there's a lot of ex-military in the American population, isn't there?
Yeah, and I heard a lot of those ex-military guys would likely fight against gun control too, you know?
Yeah.
And also too, the ex-military people, they're hard too because they actually have the training. So they actually would be able to train the civilians on how to use military tactics. That's the thing too. They'd be able to train them, you know, because they have the experience basically. Like, I'm not sure if you saw that. There was a movie. It's called Red Dawn. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but there was a remake.
Oh yeah, I watched it years ago.
Well, there was a remake made up in 2012, which I saw, where basically instead of the Russians, it was the North Koreans invading, and the main characters, one of them was actually a veteran of Iraq War, and the show is him actually training his friends on like military tactics because he had the experience. So like that's what would happen is that the ex-military people among the gun owners, they would just train the civilians on how to basically like with military tactics. So even when the military does come, well, it basically would be an even match because they've already been trained in their tactics. And then likewise, the current soldiers that would have quit too, they would also help train in military tactics as well. So like Joe Biden would have no way of enforcing any kind of gun grabs. And plus too, just also too, like whenever the authorities keep seeing them come back in body bags, it just emotionally it damages you when you realize like when you see like I heard of one case like during the Afghan-Soviet war, like the Soviets, like, you know, it was just mentally damaging for them to see you send about 20,000 guys and like half of them come back in body bags. You realize like, is it really just worth it at this point?
Yeah. But I think a lot of Americans would go for the people in government first, wouldn't they, if they started a gun grab?
Well, yeah, there definitely would be like assassination attempts against like the people who are trying to pass these laws too.
But then they'd just go into their bunkers, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Well, for example, when it's kind of fun too. This is actually how really like the American government, they really have no, when you really get down to it, the American government, they're actually afraid of the American people. Because remember when that Capitol siege happened, believe me, those politicians, they are terrified. I mean, I actually listened to some of the testimonies. They were afraid for their lives. I mean, like that's kind of the thing too, is that if the American people were to really rebel against them, the government they'd be afraid. I mean, because the Capitol riot, I mean, the Capitol siege, I saw pictures of these politicians just terrified of what was going on. So, you know, they know what could happen. And this wasn't even the American people. This was just a mob of like a couple hundred Trump supporters. And even that, and they weren't even armed. That was enough to just terrify them. Like what's that girl's name? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She made this whole video on Instagram about how she was afraid for her life and she has PTSD now, you know, because these
yeah.
I just love how thin-skinned they are. I just love how thin-skinned these people are. It's like, you know, they're in the securest area ever. You know, I also love it too when these same people think they have the right to talk about sacrifice to military veterans when you're that thin-skinned. Seriously. Like me personally, I honestly don't blame it when military people get kind of pissed off or get kind of upset, excuse my language, when they hear politicians talk about sacrifice when they themselves have never actually been through what military people have gone through, like in other countries.
Mm.
Like, for example, my grandfather was a World War II veteran. He had one crazy story where he was repairing an airplane. He was a mechanic. He fixed airplanes. And there was one instance where a German airplane just came over and shot at him while he was trying to fix an airplane. He like narrowly missed and got to cover in time. You know, that was during World War II. My grandfather, he was a Canadian Air Force veteran. And then, of course, my great grandfather, he was actually a veteran of World War I, and he actually has stories where, for example, how, you know, and this also just shows too how how effeminate we become too. Where back during World War One, he has stories where, you know, what they would do is that when they were about to charge out in the trench, because he was actually in the British Army during World War One, and what he would do is that they actually would often have somebody stay behind with a bayonet to basically shoot anyone who tries to retreat. So they had a thing of, you're not retreating for any kind of reason. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how they were back then. You know, that's kind of how thick skinned they were back then. Now today, people are just so thin skinned, it's crazy. You know?
Yeah.
You know, like during the battle, like he was saying, like, you know, if the officers, if they saw someone retreating, they would just shoot him, you know, because they said no retreats. You're going forward. There's no retreating. You know, so that was what guys my age were 100 years ago. Now people of my age today are just, they're the complete opposite. Like I was telling my friend one time how, like, you know, I turned 18 like in 2019. You know, 100 years ago, guys my age would have been on the trenches out in the front line in Europe. 100 years later, guys my age are looking for safe spaces to be safe from insults or whatever. That's how weak my generation has become.
Have you got a safe space, John?
No, I don't. I'm the kind of person where really, like, you know, I mean, I get all kinds of hate mail and that kind of stuff. I'm used to it. You know, so I'm the kind of person where I don't really need a safe space, you know. And plus, too, it's like, you know, if you're, that's why I say too, like, you know, if someone's feelings are hurt, well, hey, welcome to real life. You're gonna get your feelings hurt. Just deal with it. You know what I mean? That's always my response. You know, I get insulted all the time for being a white person when I was in high school. I just deal with it. You know what I mean? I just say, hey, whatever. You're gonna get insulted. Just deal with it. Oh yeah, Alex Canis, he brings up a good point as well. There would likely be a split between the pro and anti-gun supporters. I agree with that. And it's kind of funny too. I want to say this about the anti-gun supporters. I always find it really funny when these celebrities come out in support of gun control, because these are people who live in these gated communities with armed guards. But then they say the average people should not have guns. It's like what a hypocrite they are. Like seriously, like if you're a celebrity, what a hypocrite you are. You live in gated community, you have armed guards, but then it's wrong to own a gun. Meanwhile, you hire people with guns to protect you. What absolute hypocrisy. Plus, too, think about these celebrities that they live in these like big, huge, these like gated communities in Beverly Hills, Hollywood. They don't know what it's like to be your average working class person in North America, and how you know the dangers you can be exposed to. You know. But I just love it when people who hire armed guards to protect them say you shouldn't own a gun. Meanwhile, they hire armed guards to protect them. Like they should be consistent and say, "Hey, no guns." So basically for them, it's guns for me, but not for thee. You know, I just love that hypocrisy there. That's why whenever celebrities talk about issues like politics, I don't take them seriously, because they really have no reason to say anything about it. They have no reason to open their mouths at all.
So it must be 9:45 in the morning where you are, John, isn't it?
It's 9:47 a.m. where I am.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to say there's one last thing about gun control too. Here in Canada, and this is also just more proof that gun control, because my mom, she actually supports gun control, surprisingly. I don't know why, but she actually supports it. I think because I don't know why, but she thinks that gun control is kind of a good thing. I was telling her, so notice that like here in Canada, we have heavy gun control, yet there's shootings almost every single day just here in Ontario alone. I mean, I turn on my newsfeed every single day. I'm hearing about some new shooting that happens. So yeah, even though we have heavy gun control here in Ontario, I mean, places like Scarborough in Toronto, Canada, though that area is so dangerous that even the police don't want to be around there. That's how dangerous it is. Yeah. But
gun control only controls the guns of law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, I told my mom that. I told my mom that criminals don't care about the law. They're going to get, I mean, like, for example, the shooter in Ottawa, because my mom brought up, well, the shooter in Ottawa, he got a gun. Yeah, but notice how he got a gun. He got it illegally. You know, like, he doesn't, like, these people who are going to do these Islamic terrorists or whatever, they don't care about the law. They're going to get guns regardless. I mean, he got his gun off the black market. Like, they don't care about the law. So, like, because all the gun control law, all they do is just simply disarm law-abiding citizens. That's all they really do. Because, like, you look at places like Chicago. Chicago has the heaviest gun control of any city in America, yet they have the highest rates of gun crime.
Yeah.
And not to mention too, you also notice how haven't you ever noticed how every single mass shooting, this is also the best argument I love using it like against these pro gun control people. Haven't you noticed how every single mass shooting happens at gun-free zones every single time? Like you won't see about, for example, like you don't hear about Islamic terrorist attacks, for example, on a police station, or you don't hear about it at a hunting expo. You know, like they always go to places where nobody's armed, like schools or stuff like that. They'll never attack somewhere where everybody's armed, like a police station or a hunting expo or something like that. Or like with Waco, Texas, that place was so heavily armed, they had to bring in the military because that place was so heavily armed. So
I don't know. I mean, the trouble is with the Americans, they love to hype things up, make things sound and look worse than they actually are.
Yeah.
And I think just their presence there proved to the ignorant, really, that.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't doing anybody any harm. They hadn't attacked anybody.
Yeah. If their pretext to Waco was, oh, they had a lot of guns, well, hey, that's welcome to having the Second Amendment. You can have guns, you know. If you don't like that, well, just don't live in America.
But they had them legally, I think.
Yeah, they had them legally. Oh,
yeah. I'm sure they did.
Yeah, but I actually heard that, for example, the boss, the Oklahoma City bomber, he actually was like, one of his motives was because of Waco, because he was saying that the government is becoming too powerful. He wanted to essentially fight against the government. That was one of his motivations for doing it. Was Waco. In fact, Waco was kind of a big like campaign rally for many anti-government groups, saying like this is what the government is like when they want power. And that was back in 1994. Think of how bad it is now. That was back in 1994.
I can't remember about why that Ruby Ridge thing started.
Yeah. I don't know.
That was bad.
Yeah. And like, you know, I think the reason why the FBI was so heavily criticized too is because they killed children too. That was kind of the reason why they're so heavily criticized, because they went after children. Yeah. It's also funny too when people say, "Oh, we need assault weapons bans." Well, again, studies have shown that those don't help either, because there was actually an assault weapons ban, because most gun crime is not done by assault weapons. It's done by like handguns and stuff like that. Like you won't walk down Chicago and see some black guy or gangster where carrying like an assault rifle. You won't see that. I mean, like one of the reasons why I'm always so passionate against gun control is because here in Canada we've basically been disarmed. Like in order to get a gun here in Canada, you have to take a class, and then even when you pass the class, you're able to apply for a permit. But even when you pass the class and apply for a permit, your permit can still be rejected. So if it gets rejected, you did the class for nothing basically. So it's hard to get a gun here. So we've basically been disarmed. So I'm basically like telling my American followers, hey, don't let that happen to your country, because like we've already been disarmed. I mean, you can buy a gun, but it's hard to do so. And even when you do have a gun, you have to keep it concealed. It can't be loaded. You can't open carry. You can't have it with you in the car, or you can't have it with arms reaching the car. All these other things you can't have. Which is funny, because back in the 1930s, you'll see pictures of kids holding hunting rifles, because everyone had that back then. But now today we've become so soft and effeminate. Like me personally, I would pay to just spend a few days back 100 years ago. I would just pay to spend a few days back, like time travel back then, and just experience life back when North America was not so, soy boy like. Basically back when things were right, essentially.
Yeah. Well, that Canadian guy I told you about, trap lines and inlines, he lives in Saskatchewan, is a coyote hunter, trapper. He's only 19 or so.
Yeah.
Really hard working, built his own house and his chicken shed and all sorts of other stuff. Working mad hours at -50. And he's 19.
Yeah.
20.
And the thing is, 100 years ago, that was just what people my age did. Like here's how pathetic my generation is. I mean, I watched one documentary where it was basically about the alt-right online, and literally like one of the guys that showed, he was a 25-year-old guy, so he's 5 years older than I am. He's 25 years old, has no job, lives in his parents, and they pay his bills. He just sits around on his computer all day, and his parents actually allow that. I mean, 100 years ago, that would have never flown. I mean, 100 years ago, that would have never been allowed. But like my generation today, a lot of them, you know, because again, when I applied for my job at Walmart, I was the only one of my generation who did that. Like nobody else from my generation. Well, there was one other kid from my generation, but like everyone else was like from older generations. Because my generation is just very lazy. They just don't want to do stuff. You know, their idea of exercise is getting up off the couch to fetch the TV remote. That's their idea of exercise.
I'll only tell you one thing about this guy, Johnny. Does swear a bit.
Yeah. Well, if he's lost, then I don't expect him to not to.
Yeah.
The thing is that when you listen to lost YouTubers, you know, just expect some ungodly stuff, because that's just what happens. Like you can't expect.
It does swear, but it's not. It's just part of his sort of normal way of communicating. Do you know what I mean? It's not like vindictive swearing.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it's too, like, we're not condoning language, but you know, just what happens, you know. Oh, also, Alex Canis pointed out something too in the comment section, which is actually a very good point. He says that antidepressants have played a critical role in most mass shooters' psychotic behaviors. That's actually very true. Like, you look at a lot of these shooters, a lot of them are heavily drugged up. I mean, a lot of them are on all kinds of, like, for example, the Columbine shooters. There was actually an autopsy done on their blood. What was in their blood, and they had all kinds of psychotropic drugs in their bloodstream. Like all these shooters, like were on psychotropic drugs. You know, like for example, the shooter at that black church in Charleston, North Carolina, he was on psychotropic drugs too. You know, that's also why too, like they can do these kind of horrific acts and not have any kind of the emotional kind of like emotional kind of like burden on them. Because when you hear people like screaming agony, like you kind of just can't, like when I hear it on video, like when I see it in movies, I can't like kind of bear to watch it. So like the fact they can just do these acts and have like no emotion just shows they're on some kind of drugs. There's no normal human does that and not have some kind of emotional burden on them.
Yeah. Can you see his house there, John?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you're saying this guy's only 19 years old and he did all that?
About 19. I think. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Very young lad though, it's obvious. Yeah, that's it again there.
Yeah, he definitely, based on what I'm seeing about him, he definitely looks close to my age at least.
Yeah. But he's got a piece of land out there.
I think the problem is too, the reason why my generation, which is Gen Z, the reason why my generation, and especially the generation which is Generation Alpha, which is after my generation, basically, the reason why my generation is so lazy is because like my generation is the first generation that actually grew up like with the internet. Like nobody from my generation can remember a time before the internet. You know, like there are some there are some millennials who are kind of like older millennials who were born in the early 80s that can remember life before everyone had internet. But my generation, based on what I checked, Gen Z, like in order to qualify for Gen Z, you were born between 1997 and 2012. So, and I was born in 2000. I was born in 01. So I'm Gen Z. My generation is the only one that grew up with the internet. So that probably is probably part of the problem that we grew up with that kind of stuff, which is older generations. They know life before the internet. Like there are some millennials who are like in their 40s and they can remember a time before everybody had internet access, before everyone was walking. I mean, heck, even like I'll even say this, even I can remember like time before everyone had their cell phones. Like because I grew up in the early 2000s, so I can sort of remember time before everyone just carried these little touchscreen phones everywhere. You know, I actually can remember walking into a store when I was like really young and actually seeing people socialize, not just being on their phones. So that was even back in the early 2000s, before everyone had these little touchscreen phones all the time. In fact, I remember my dad owning a flip phone, which is kind of funny. So even I can like vaguely remember, you know, life before this technology induced world we have.
Well, the phones in cars used to be bigger than a house brick, John. Apparently.
Yeah. I remember too. You know, so like I'm only 20, but I can still remember. You know, when I used to watch movies in the car, the device we had to use, it took up like a good chunk of the back seat because that's how big it was. Now today you can just stuff in a little iPod. In fact, I actually remember when iPods first came out. I remember like the first time they came out, I thought it was pretty cool how it was touchscreen. So it's like, but now today, you know, everybody has them. And like, here's just an idea of this. So I actually came across, I was going through some old photos and I came across one of me back in 2006. That was like 16 years ago. I was like probably about 5 years old, the photo. So I remember, so basically I went to this park I used to go to all the time as a kid. And when I would go there, I mean, it was always packed every time I went there. Well, I fast forward like 16 years later, I actually revisited that park now as an adult, and I came there, and it was like there's like nobody there, and I'm thinking like, where's everybody? Because the day I went, it was a pretty nice day, and like normally, like if it was 16 years before it, like it would have been crowded. So I walk around, it's like no, the only person there is like some older lady who's like singing a song to herself. So now I walk around the neighborhood a bit more, and I see all the kids are just inside on their little Xbox and the computers. So I'm thinking like, well, there they all are, you know. I remember even at one time asking, I actually walked up to the old lady. I asked her, like, where are all the kids? And of course, I explained to her I used to visit this park a lot when I was younger. And she just said, oh, they're inside on their computers now. I'm like, oh, that explains a lot. Because that day was a really nice day. I mean, it was the kind of day where you'd want to be outside. Like if it was 16 years ago when I would have done there, like it would have been crowded back when I went there. But now it's just like everyone's inside. And then their idea of socializing is playing some online video game, talking to their friends. That's their idea of socializing. But as bad as my generation Gen Z is, I'm not sure if mine's worse than Generation Alpha, or because Generation Alpha is the one after my generation. But I'm not sure which is worse. But we're both of us are just addicted. Both generations are just addicted to our because in Generation Alpha they came after my generation, so they would be even more addicted to that stuff because they grew up with all the advanced technology. Which is people from my generation, we can kind of some of us can remember a time before all that, sort of, like I do at least. But yeah, Alex, you're right. The antidepressants have definitely played a big role in all that. The antidepressants were definitely, essentially what they do is they only make it they only make depression worse, really, when you get down to it. And you also look at a lot of these shooters too. You know, it's like a lot, like almost all of them are on some kind of psychotropic drug. That's all that is. Hence why, you know, they do what they do because they're not thinking straight.
Makes you wonder how people actually ever managed before they started inventing all these drugs.
Well, I can guarantee you this: you definitely didn't hear about mass shootings back in the 1800s, where you had, you know, well, you might have heard about some cases, but it wasn't just as widespread as it is today. Because, you know, and people were like, oh, it's like I always say, don't blame the guns, blame the psychotropics they're putting you on. Don't blame the psychotropics the pharmacy are putting you on. Don't blame the guns. Blame the psychotropics. They're the ones who are messing those kids up. I even heard too, the reason why a lot of these pharmacists and doctors commit suicide is because they have so much guilt. Because I think a lot of them just know that they're poisoning people, and they have so much guilt. And yeah, I mean they know full well what they're doing, and of course the guilt, they have so much guilt that they just can't they have so much guilt.
Well, maybe they don't know initially, but when they find out later, you know.
Because the problem is too is that when you're knowingly doing something like when you're knowingly doing evil to somebody like that, and like they don't know it but you do, like eventually the guilt just keeps building up, and eventually you just can't take it anymore, and you just end yourself because you have so much guilt this way. Why? Because the Bible says the sorrow of the world works death. You know, if they have sorrow of the world, and then they basically they end themselves. Because if they had godly sorrow, they would get saved.
A lot of it is compartmentalized, John.
Yeah.
But eventually, when they find out what the bigger picture is, then you get them rebelling, don't you?
Yeah. Well, the thing is too is that if I was a doctor, and let's just say I was a doctor and I got saved and I found out what was going on, you know, I would at least tell my patient, like I'd call my patient in. I would tell him, hey, I'm taking you off these drugs, and he'd say why. I explained to him why, and I would just tell him, and I'm sure, you know, of course he might be shocked, obviously, but I would just tell him, hey, I don't care what happens to me. I'm just telling you why I'm taking off these drugs, and I explained to him why. The next doctor you see, make sure like when he gives you drugs, don't take them because this is what they do to you. And you know, whatever happens to me, I at least my conscience will be clear, knowing that I did the right thing. Yeah, Alex, you're right. Prescription Thugs is a must watch. Yeah, you're right. The Columbine shooting was inspired. Most of the school. Yeah, exactly. The Columbine shooting inspired a lot of these school shooters, and all these other school shooters were on these psychotropic drugs too. So,
Oh, John. Hold on. Wait a minute.
Oh, he's gone. Yeah, you're right. The psychotropics. I mean, pill doctors tend to be punished as street level dealers. Well, essentially, like here's the thing, Alex, is that you look at the Greek word for and I'm not the kind of person who just goes back to the Greek all the time, but you look at the Greek word for pharmacy. It's pharmakia, and it basically means like the word literally means sorcery. Like it means sorcerer. So when you're going to the pharmacist, you're essentially just going to a sorcerer because the drugs are just mind control. And when you really get down to it, the pharmacist is no different than a drug dealer on the street. The only difference is that one of them wears tattered clothes, the other one wears a white coat. That's the only difference. But he's still just your average drug dealer, just with a white coat on. Oh, and also with a title of doctor or some kind of PhD or whatever. But that's all that it is. He just like I'll put it this way: he's just simply an educated drug dealer. You know, he has an education, and but he's still dealing drugs to people. And what it also comes down to as well is the reason why they deal these drugs is just mostly the love of money. They do it for money. Because the love of money is the root of all evil. Pretty much most evil actually can trace back to the love of money.
Well, there's trillions in it, John.
Yeah. That's the thing too, is like you can find examples where somebody will stab their friends in the back, or like you find examples where somebody who like I watched a movie one time where this person was like supposedly working for the royal family, and he ends up stabbing them in the back to join the Nazis. And he said, "Oh, they said, oh, you betrayed Britain. Why'd you do that?" He says, "Well, there was too much money involved. I want the money." And so like also what comes down to like people will do anything for money. That's the thing. I mean, the whole thing is there's people it's called contract killers. There are people you can just hire to kill somebody because why? They love money. You know, so you can hire a contract killer to kill somebody basically. So people will do anything for money. That's also why Jesus Christ says in Matthew 6 that you can't serve God and mammon, because you know you can't, if you're in it for money, then you're not serving God.
William, when you move to this new place that you're going to, John, will it have better internet?
It probably will. Yeah, I mean it's a smaller town, so it's like like reason why I'm moving to, reason why I'm like kind of looking forward to it is it's a smaller town. It's more peaceful. It probably will have better internet. Who knows? Because there'll be less traffic around there too. Because in my area, there's like especially with the COVID-19, because there's so many people using the internet, it was like overriding the system essentially. And I think even now with the weather, the reason why I'm having bad internet now is just because the weather. People are just hunkering inside. They're just on the internet all day long. I will say this one last other thing about the whole pharmacy thing. Do I think that all drugs necessarily are bad for you? I'm not saying they all are. I'm just saying that like whenever you get a drug, just make sure you look. I always say just research what's in them first before you just chuck them in your body. I mean, like if I ever give a prescription drug, you know, I would at least want to research what's in the thing first before I just inject it into my body.
But even those inserts that you get, John, they can't be relied on.
Yeah. Or for example, like, you know, occasionally I might buy some vitamins from Shoppers Drug Mart. You know, whenever I buy vitamins, I always check to make sure what's in them before I spend $10 on the box.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, John, you don't even know if they're telling you the truth.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. They could just lie. I mean, because you know, because here's the thing: if Satan is their father, well, they're going to do the lust of their father, which is lying. And also, too, I will say this: a lot of these so-called mental disorders are not mental disorders. A lot of times, it's something wrong with them. But like what happens when they come with these mental disorders? What happens is that you have a group of people sitting together and they just make up some mental disorder, like ADHD or something like that. Like supposedly, I was diagnosed with quote ADHD when I was younger. I personally, reject that. I think that I don't have ADHD. I just need more discipline, which obviously I got. So that's why I say that I do believe, like, for example, I have autism. I have a mild form, and I believe it's just because my mom got my birth mother got vaccinated because I am adopted, but my birth mother got vaccinated. That's why I think I have autism. But like with ADHD, when I got diagnosed with ADHD, I'm thinking like, whatever. But I personally think I don't have ADHD. I just have a hyperactive mentality. Because I've always heard it too, I've heard it said, that ADHD doesn't exist. Like the kid doesn't have ADHD. He just needs more discipline. There is no ADHD. He just needs discipline, not drugging him up on Ritalin or whatever. Like, for example, when a kid goes to school, kids are not meant to just be sat around for 8 hours like that when they go to school. I certainly didn't like that. So like instead of just sticking on Ritalin, how about you just take them outside? How about you do classes outside? Don't just stick them on Ritalin, because kids are not meant to be cooped up and sitting on a desk for 8 hours or 6 hours a day, however long school lasts. I know for me, like elementary and high school for me lasted like 6 hours roughly a day.
I never liked school. They just used to bore me.
I think all of us did. Me personally, my main issue with school in general is that very little of what I was taught actually was useful to me.
Yeah.
In fact, it was kind of fun. It's actually ironic. So I actually would often sometimes talk to my teachers after class, and we have a good conversation. Most of the stuff I learned in school, I actually learned from talking to my teachers during lunch or after class. It wasn't even like part of the curriculum. It was just some knowledge he shared with me through his life experience. So the only kind of stuff I learned that was useful in school, quote unquote, was stuff that wasn't even part of the curriculum. It was just stuff my teacher and I had a conversation about, and he just shared some advice to me. Pretty much nothing that was part of the curriculum in terms of like learning from the curriculum was actually useful. It was just stuff we would talk about after class that was useful, that he would just give me advice and stuff. But I find that very little. The problem with the school system today is that it doesn't really like focus on like creativity. It mostly just focuses on telling you what to think, like telling you what things you're supposed to think. Like me personally, if like I'm not a big fan of public school in general, but what should it be about is that encouraging creative thinking and thinking outside the box and that kind of stuff, not telling you what to think or how to, like, not telling you what to think, but telling you creativity, basically, encouraging creativity. Like, for example, if you go to art class, don't tell them what to paint, just tell them, hey, like, just be creative. Because like the definition of art is not like how they call it art. Like when I was in grade 8 when they did art class, the definition of art is not being told what to paint. You're just creative. That's kind of definition of art. Art is not being told what to paint or being told what to draw. That's not definition of art.
But you can show them how to use all the different colours and mix colours and structure a drawing, a painting, compose it.
Yeah,
but the rest is up to them, really, isn't it?
Yeah, in fact, I'll even say this. I'll even go a step further. I remember one time I was in grade 8. We actually did have art class, and one of the students actually like spent extra time trying to make his thing look really good and kind of artistic. He actually was shunned. Hey, you got to get it done before the deadline. Well, again, you can't rush art. You know what I mean? I heard it saying you can't rush art. Well, it's like you can't call it art class when you're rushing it. The kid wants to make it creative. Well, let him do it. That's what art is. So like the fact that they're rushing him, it's like, well, that's not art. Like you can't, like I heard it said, you can't rush art. That's just not how it works. You can't call it art class if you're rushing it. That's just not how it works. Like all the famous paintings, they weren't just painted within a couple hours. They didn't have a deadline that when they finished painting, they just did it. And when they finished whenever they finished. Plus, I was surprised they weren't actually like this kid. He was really good at painting, so I'm actually surprised they weren't encouraging him. Hey, you're really good at that. They were just rushing. Hey, you got to get it done. Hurry up and get it done. Like I'm surprised they weren't, because he was like his painting was like up there with really professional type stuff. So I'm surprised. Like if I was a teacher, I would have been encouraging. Hey, you're really good at that. You should keep it up. Not just rushing him and pressuring him.
Yeah, well, they don't like people with talent, do they? Really, the school system.
That's the problem too. They don't like it when you're thinking outside the box. They tell you what to think, not how to think.
Yeah.
And the thing is too is that school today, like back 100 years ago, there were cases where schools in America actually had gun training classes. Now today in school they tell you against guns. That's how dumbed down it is today. Like I guarantee you, like if my grandfather was still alive, he was in his 90s. He was 91 when he died. If he was still alive today, and I was just to take him, he was like I guess visit my elementary school, he would not even recognize Canadian schools today than when he remembers going to school as a kid. He wouldn't even recognize it. It's just so different. Like instead of being taught how to handle a gun, they're being taught that men who cross-dress and think they're women are somehow women or whatever. And you should let them into the bathroom with your teenage daughter because if you don't, you're transphobic. Like me personally, if schools were like if Canadian public schools were the same that they were like back in the 30s or 20s, I would have no problem sending my kid to it because he's actually going to learn useful stuff. But now today, if I have kids, they're going to be homeschooled because like as someone who's been through the public school system, I don't want them going through that same propaganda that I went through. So I would just homeschool them because if schools were like how they were in the 30s, I wouldn't have no problem because they're actually going to learn useful stuff. But now today, it's all just propaganda they feed you. And then the thing about like education is that school should be the place where exchange of ideas happens the most. But in my case, it wasn't. I mean, like when I shared my opinion that, hey, I think marriage is between a man and a woman, I got shunned for that. There was even one time where Richard Dawkins, like the atheist guy, he was actually going to speak at a or he was going to do a radio show or something. Like, he was going to do some kind of speech at a college campus. Well, his event actually got shut down by these Antifa leftist people because he was critical of Islam. And he was just saying too how it's ridiculous because the college and university, they should be the place where exchange of ideas happens. It should be the last place, or it should be the first place you go to for exchange of ideas. But now it's like he was shut down. So he's a hero on the left because he's a hero for left wingers because he criticizes Christianity. But then when he starts going after Islam, they shut his events down for that.
Yeah, they don't want people to have ideas other than theirs. The government ones. And
the problem with the Islam issue too is that a lot of these people, like and Dawkins himself, to his credit, he pointed out the fact that these people, they also, the problem is that they think that, like he's saying that the problem stems from the fact that they seem to think that Islam is a race. So if you go against Islam, you're automatically racist.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because you look at people, they'll say, "Oh, you're racist." Well, it's like, well, again, what race is Islam? Well, they seem to think that Islam is a race. I guess they associate with Arabic people or whatever, even though there are many non-Arabic Muslims.
Yeah, well, you got Muslims all around Asia, haven't you? India,
well, I mean, Afghanistan is a Muslim state, and they're like all Pashtun. They're not Arab, or Iran. They're all Muslim too, and they're all Persian. They're not Arabs. I mean, Somalia is like 99%. Like I heard Somalia is like 99.9% Muslim, and look, they're all Africans. They're not even Arabs at all. They're not even closely related to Arabs, but they're like 99% Muslim over there. Same thing with Nigeria. They're like 50% Muslim over there. In fact, I'd even argue too that most Muslims are not even Arabs because the majority of Muslim states are in places like sub-Saharan Africa or Central Asia where there's no Arabs, or Persia as well. Even in places like the Congo, where it's like all a jungle, there's like mostly Muslims there too. Oh yeah, also Indonesia. They're like mostly Muslim too, and I think they're East Asian. They're mostly Muslim over there too. Oh, and Malaysia and Bangladesh and everything else. In fact, I'd argue that most Muslims in the world are not even Arabic. Most of them are from other places that were part of the Islamic conquests. Like for example, India, they have the largest they have the largest Muslim population for a non-Muslim majority country, basically. Like they have like I think 1 billion Hindus and like a couple 100 million Muslims. So the Muslims are the second biggest population. And even here in Canada, I read some polls that even here in Canada, Islam is actually growing. Is actually the fastest growing religion here in Canada in terms of people becoming Islam, mostly because of the migrants coming over. But here's the thing too. I'll say this as well. Whenever you hear about, like, for example, when Iran says over like 99% Muslim, I'd argue too that most people who say they're Muslims are only saying that because they don't want to get arrested. Because in these countries, it's illegal to not be a Muslim. So whenever you hear about, there are this many Muslims, I argue that there's many Muslims who are not Muslims. They just say they are, so they're not persecuted. Like, supposedly there was one poll that I read that said that in Iran they claim there's like 90% Muslim over there. However, according to people who have actually lived in Iran, according to this one poll said that people who have actually lived in Iran, that they said that the number of like really devout Muslims in Iran is only about 40% of the Iranian population. Yet the government says it's like 90% Muslim over there. But yet those who are actually like devout Muslims, according to people who live there, are only like 40% of the population. Most of the people who are Muslim are even not devout, or just saying they're Muslim so they're not persecuted. But like only 40% of them are actually like full-on devout Muslims who pray 5 times a day, 10 mosques every single week, and everything like that.
A lot of it's just cultural, John. They're forced to.
Yeah.
If they don't turn up, they'll get accused and this, that, and the other.
Or just like they're in Europe with the Inquisition, if you didn't show up to mass, they'd hunt you down and question you.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of these Islamic theocracies, they keep track of who's, like, they keep track and whatever, because again, you have to remember that Islam is the state religion, so the mosque is connected to the states. They have some government authority in that position. They have a level of governmental authority. And the thing is too is that I even learned too that even when you have a state, like for example with Britain, they have the Church of England as their state religion, but the state religion is not like enforcing other people. Like they still have religious freedom. But with Muslim countries, they go beyond just having a state religion. They have it where it's state enforced, basically.
Yeah, it is a state enforced religion, isn't it?
Yeah, because England, they have the Church of England, they have it as their official state religion, but it's not enforced on anybody. Which is what in places like Iran, they have Islam as a state religion, and it's enforced, basically, like it's state enforced. Oh, my cat.
Oh, meow, meow.
Oh, he likes being in the sunlight. I think it's warm for him. And over in India, for example, all these like radical Hindu nationalists, they're trying to make India into because India is officially a secular state where they don't have a state religion. But India is I think it's like 78 or 80% Hindu over there, and a lot of these like radical Hindus are like openly saying they want to abolish secularism and make India into a Hindu theocracy, where Hinduism is like basically the state enforced religion. Like the one guy that Yogi Adityanath, that Hindu monk, he's actually a very high ranking politician. He openly says he wants to abolish secularism and turn India into basically a Hindu theocracy. Alex Kana says Islam is based in legalism while Christianity is based on grace. Arianism highly influenced Muhammad after his adherents were exiled by Pope Leo. That is true. I mean, the thing about Islam is that you go to Muslim countries, they have what's called the Hizbah, the moral police, where they go out and actually beat people up who don't adhere to Islamic values and whatever else. And here, I'll say this too. A lot of what they call Islamic values are things that are I have no problem with. Like modesty on women. All that kind of stuff. But the problem is that with Christianity, our standards only apply to us as Christians. We can't enforce that on non-believers. But with Muslims, like their Sharia applies to everybody, not just Muslims. Like everybody that lives in a Muslim country, not just the Muslims. He says, Alex Kane says Dawkins is an anti-theist who evades difficult questions. Yeah, that's true. I've seen that. Dawkins, he'll evade certain questions. In fact, I mean, I'm an ex-atheist myself, and I've engage with atheists, and they often will avoid certain. They'll try to dodge. They'll try to always like use evasion tactics or whatever to certain questions they don't like. What was this? He says there was a sex assault in Virginia, which the culprit identified as a pansexual with pansexual chromosomes in a physical sense determined gender and other traits. Yeah, in other words, you just call that mental illness. That's what you can just call it. You can just call it mental illness.
New message is received from UC. Messages reminder.
Oh, so it's kind of funny. My eyes have become so adjusted to the sunlight that when a cloud just went over the sun, it just went totally dark in my room because I guess I've been so adjusted to the sunlight. Yeah, but you're right, Alex. Islam is definitely based on legalism. That is true. Because again, it's like the New Testament code of conduct only applies to saved believers. It doesn't apply to a non-Christians, you know. But with Islamic Sharia, like if you're living in a Muslim country, it applies to you whether you're Muslim or not. And that's also one thing that's always made kind of Baptist Christians like distinct from other like groups, is that Baptists have always stood for the concept of liberty of conscience, you know, church-state separation, and always stood against like the idea of forcing our morals on somebody else. Like they knew that, you know, you can't expect somebody who's not Christian to adhere to that. And that's what always had. In fact, John Clark, he was a Baptist. He was one of the you know, ideological fathers of the idea of liberty of conscience. He was a Baptist. The reason why too is that many of these Baptists they came to America to obviously escape the persecution in Europe by Rome and also by many of the Protestants too. So they knew what it's like to when you have a state theocracy like that. They knew what it's like. What's this? Oh. But it's kind of funny. It's like one thing that Rome has in common with all of her, like with all, I guess you could say the harlot children in Revelation 7, seems that all of them believe in a form of dominionism. You know, like whether it be Islam or Calvinism, all of them reject, you know, church-state separation and liberty of conscience. All of them believe in some form of dominionism, where they think that there should be the state religion. That's kind of a characteristic of Mystery Babylon and her children.
I don't think most Christians would enjoy state religion. It would get a bit puritanical, I think.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, I personally want to enjoy it because, first of all, it's unbiblical, and second of all, I just want to enjoy it. Me personally, a state religion, and the problem is that too. The reason why it's a problem is that, you know, if you say, okay, going to church is now mandated by law, well, then you have a lot of lost people who are going to church who are not there, who are not even saved. So that's kind of the problem too, basically, because they're forced to do it, basically.
Yeah. As soon as you start forcing people to do something or to believe something, then that's just going to cause more problems.
And that's also why forced conversions are like, they're not biblical, because, like, you know, salvation is between you and God. It's between you and God. So it's like I can't force someone to get saved, you know. And you can't
legislate for it, can you?
Yeah, and that's kind of thing too, is that when you hear the reason why the whole Spanish Inquisition was started was based on the suspicion that people they forcibly converted to Catholicism, mainly Jews and Muslims, were not really converts. Why? Because their conversion to Catholicism was not legit. They were still practicing Judaism and Islam in secret. So that was why it was started. Because that's why forced conversions don't work, because it's not legit. They're like once you leave, they're going to go back to their mosque or synagogue or wherever else, because they're not legit. That's also what's made kind of biblical Christianity distinct from pretty much every other religion, is that you'll see examples where even Hindus and Sikhs and Buddhists are doing forced conversions, but like you'll never find where Bible believing Christians, you know, or Baptists, for example, are doing forced conversions of anybody. Because salvation is not joining an organization or this or that. Salvation is between you and God. It's not joining any kind of organization. And also, too, I will say this: like, whenever the Catholic Church says, "Oh, we have 1 billion followers," well, how they count that is they say that, well, they're counting baptismal records, basically. So, like, there can be someone who's baptized. I mean, Hitler, he was baptized as a Catholic too, but then they claim, "Oh, he wasn't a Catholic." Well, by their records, if he's baptized as a Catholic, he's considered Roman Catholic, whether he is like devout in his faith or not. Like for example, I heard one poll where supposedly like back in 2010 where there were about 5 million British Catholics, or there. Oh no, I got COVID. There.
John,
was that?
Was that a fur ball?
No, I don't know what happened. I don't know. It could just be my allergies. I'm not sure. I do have some minor allergies, but I was also saying too how oh no, I got COVID now because I'm coughing or whatever. But basically, all I was saying is that I read this poll where supposedly there was 5 million British Catholics here in the UK, but they were counting that by baptismal records. So it's like is there really 5 million practicing British Catholics, or is it just 5 million people who are baptized in the Catholic Church in Britain? That's the thing. Compares to actually people who actually practice and attend the Catholic Church on a regular basis. Because again, they believe in baptismal regeneration. So when they baptize you into the church, you're considered Catholic, because they think it's part of your salvation. Or it's like when you're a Muslim, when they force you to take the Shahada, then at that point you're counted as a Muslim, well, regardless if it's legit or not. Anyway, I've been saying quite a lot. I'm just a very talkative person. I just have a lot to say when I get on the stream. I will say this. I'm also kind of just shocked at how what's his name, Fro, the Catholic guy, how he actually is just trying to defend the Spanish Inquisition. I mean, like you can. What was that?
It's insane, John.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like me trying to defend, it'd be like if I was a Muslim, me trying to defend, what the ISIS caliphate or whatever. Like that's no different.
Well, initially, he made the claim that the Inquisitions were humanitarian. Then they ended up in a debate with the Smoky guy, and they changed it from the Inquisitions were humanitarian to were the Inquisitions ethical, which changes the whole complexion of the debate, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's a massive difference between humanitarian and ethical, I would say.
And the thing is too is what is described like again, the whole thing of ethical is that it's kind of a subjective term. Like what I consider ethical would not be what he considers ethical. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a subjective term as well. It's kind of subjective as to who defines it and how they define it.
Yeah.
Because like for me, ethical would be peacefully going and preaching the gospel. But for an inquisitor, ethical would be torturing him and forcing him to renounce heresy or whatever. Like how we define ethical would be completely different. Like for example, like for a Muslim, like what's ethical for them is that all enemies of Allah should either be converted or destroyed. For me, as an ethical, I would say, hey, try to convert them, but if they don't, just let God handle them. That's so they're going to be different. What we call ethical.
Yeah.
He wants. I was saying this too. I think it'd be kind of funny too if like there was a collar made that where it translates the cat's meows into like English words. That'd be kind of cool if that was ever invented. Because it is true that like different meows from cats will like mean different things. Like right there. That's the even though dogs are always called man's best friend. I never liked dogs. I don't know. I just never liked dogs. I've always liked cats better. Mm. Hmm. Yeah, he says that Alex Kena says that Nietzsche's Beyond Right and Wrong should be read in regards to ethics, even though it famously proclaimed that God is dead due to the secular nature of ethics. His works, like Wagner's, inspired. Yeah, that is true. Nietzsche was even today, like you go on Gab, you'll see neo Nazis quoting Nietzsche all the time. But hey, but we're with the again, like I said, the truth is the truth, regardless of who is saying it. If he said something true, well, it's the truth, even though even though he says it. And again, a broken clock is right twice a day. And that's the whole thing. That's what I've always said too. Like that's where I've always been kind of like I was talking with Fro last night. That's where I've always been kind of critical of the whole counter jihadi type movement. Is that their arguments on Islam are always based on Western liberalism and often attacking Islam on stuff that Islam is correct on, like women in modesty. And you could argue they take it too far with the whole burqa thing, but women just dressing modestly, not dressing like harlots and whores all the time. For example, what was it? Like like women being at home with the kids and everything like else like that is moral, and their attacks on Islam, it's like, oh, Islam is so horrible because they don't allow sodomites to march and parade their filth through the streets. Well, that's not wrong. It's a good thing, like all the Taliban, they're so evil because they criminalize gay sex. Well, is that supposed to be a bad thing? I mean, it's a good thing they did that.
Well, the trouble is, John, with criminalising stuff like that, it just drives it underground.
Yeah.
Like it used to be before they decriminalised it.
Yeah, but the thing is too is that the reason why I would criminalize it is not like just because I'm some kind of bigot. I actually like would have scientific studies to back it up, like the kind of disease they can
wouldn't matter, John. They don't care even now, even though with AIDS and stuff.
Not just AIDS, but also hepatitis B, hepatitis A, all kinds of cancer. Yeah. I mean, there's intestinal parasites. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff it can cause.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I read one poll how they're like active gay men are actually.
John.
The thing is too is that active gay men are actually 17 times more likely to get anal cancer.
Tell you what, if you told every gay guy that, it wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you show an alcoholic the dangers of alcoholism. Well,
yeah, or smoking. I mean, when you buy a packet of cigarettes or tobacco, it shows you the damage it does to your lungs. There's a picture image on there.
Yeah,
people still buy it.
Well, I remember even when I was in elementary school, like, and this is actually probably one of the few good things I actually learned from school is they had a whole unit on the dangers of smoking, and like to their credit, that's actually the reason why I don't smoke today, because they taught me it was bad. And the thing is too is that if they had not taught that, I would have probably thought nothing wrong with it. But the thing is that was probably one of the few useful things I actually learned in elementary school was, hey, smoking is bad, drinking too much is bad, and that's why even today I don't do that kind of stuff. Even when I was a lost atheist, I didn't do it because I just knew it was not good for you. But the thing is you talk to or you try to show someone who's addicted to smoking, that's bad for you. Chances are they probably already know it's bad for them, but they just can't stop doing it. Because when I was in high school, I'd see students smoking, that kind of stuff, and they tell you even in high school they had units on how it was bad for you. Well, a lot of those guys, they knew it was bad for them, but they just kept doing it because they couldn't stop. Plus, too, one of my friends, his parents were addicted to smoking, and you know, I just saw what it did to them. How they were like in their late 40s, and they had looked like they aged several decades. So that's what it does to you. Yeah, Alex, you're true. That's true. The hormone is higher among homosexuals too. I even read too that, for example, that homosexuals also have higher rates of alcoholism and drug abuse as well. And they also have high rates of psychotic illnesses too. And also, now I guess of course the counter argument would be, well, because they're being bullied and picked on. Well, these studies also show that even in places like the Netherlands, where it's like very friendly toward gay people, even then they still have higher rates of depression and psychotic illnesses. So the thing, and the reason why they're doing it is because what they're doing is they're basically sinning against nature itself. So yeah, of course you're going to have all kinds of mental health problems because you just know what you're doing is you're sinning against nature itself. So it's like when Obama talk about, oh, we're going to use resources to fight against AIDS. Well, just don't have gay sex and you won't have a problem with AIDS. That's simple. But of course, Obama
people don't think like that, John.
Yeah, but it's kind of, I would love it if it's how I love it
for you.
Yeah,
but most people don't.
They don't think that way.
Don't take any notice.
The interesting thing is too is that, you know, it's like I've actually spoken to ex-homosexuals. You talk to any ex-homosexual, they'll all tell you, yeah, it's filthy, it's disgusting, it's dirty what they do. Like they'll all tell you the same thing. But of course, you know, that doesn't phase. But like again, you talk to any ex-homosexual, they'll all tell you, yeah, it's you know, obviously ex-gays that got born again, they'll all tell you, yeah, it's filthy, it's disgusting, it's unhealthy what they do. Like they'll be the first to tell you that that's filthy and disgusting. You know, like they'll tell you it's not a lifestyle, it's a death style.
Yeah.
Like they'll say, like like I heard one of them say to me, yeah, it's not love, it's lust. Like they don't love each other, they're lusting after each other. That's what it is. It's not love, it's lust. Because that's the thing too. It's not love when you have 500 partners. Like when the average sodomite has 500 partners, that's not love, it's lust. You know. And that's on average. Like the average has 500 partners. We're not talking about people who have more than that. That's why I say that's the whole thing about gay marriage is so laughable, because like oh, it's just a committed gay relationship. Yeah, I mean, like the idea of a monogamous gay relationship, that's like very, very rare. I mean, like the vast majority are like anything but monogamous. So yeah, I can understand when you have like 500 partners in your lifetime and you're doing all this kind of diverse stuff. Yeah, you're probably going to get some kind of mental illness and depression at some point. Yeah, Alex, you're right. Alcohol is definitely a key factor to suicide, aggression. Yeah, exactly. I mean, people who are addicted to alcohol do have higher rates of that kind of stuff. Not to mention too that alcoholism can also cause what they call hernia and also other stuff. It can cause all kinds of bad stuff. Yeah, homosexuals, they can bully too. Yeah, exactly. They can. I mean, they accuse, you know, if you go against them, they'll accuse you of being a hater. It's funny, the same, like you see videos of street preachers at gay pride rallies. The same sodomites who accuse them of being haters are the same ones who are ripping their banners down, attacking them, punching them, and that kind of stuff. I mean, who is a real hater? You know, there's actually a really funny video I saw. It's called "Attacked by Tolerance." It was by this Roman Catholic group called TFP Student Action or whatever it's called. Yeah, it's called TFP Student Action. They have a whole film they put together called "Attacked by Tolerance: How Homosexual Activists Use Violence to Get Their Message Across," or something like that. And they just show like different examples where they were holding peaceful protests in support of biblical marriage, and they were violently attacked by gay rights advocates. And they again, it's called "Attacked by Tolerance," basically, which is true. You know, they were basically being attacked by tolerance. Like they're beating you up and attacking you, assaulting and damaging your equipment in the name of tolerance, in the name of stopping hate and bigotry. And part of the reason why it's so widely accepted in Western society today is mainly due to the Hollywood and media, because they push it all the time. And even just last year during the summer, there were like several kids cartoons I used to watch as a young child, like what Sesame Street and Blue's Clues. I used to watch those all the time when I was like 5. Even those are like bringing out transgender propaganda and drag queen garbage and everything else. I mean, you know, why do they feel the need to put all this stuff in kids' cartoons? Well, because they're after children. That's why. Hey, Alex. Yeah, I remember when I was you spent 3 hours in college credit on basic nutrient. Yeah, I remember when I was in 3rd grade, they had like a whole unit on why drugs are bad for you. And then ever since then, I just never took any bad drugs. That's like the one useful things I learned in elementary school. That was in 3rd grade. So that was like 10 years ago, at least 10, 11 years ago. And the problem is too, like Bob, you also bring a good point too. Banning something doesn't make it go away; it just goes underground. For example, my high school, they banned vaping and they banned smoking. Well, all the kids did was they went in the bathroom and just smoked there because they knew that teachers weren't allowed in the bathrooms. So like even banning it doesn't it doesn't really fully get rid of it. They'll just do it underground. That's kind of thing because again, my high school they banned vaping and they banned smoking. Well, I'd go to the washroom and I see all the kids all the time just smoking and vaping in the washroom because they knew that teachers weren't allowed in there. So even though it was banned, they just did it secretly. So I'd go in the washroom. It always reeks of vape all the time because there's kids doing it.
I wonder who else is watching, John. I can see 2 on the screen.
I know I'm one of them that's watching. So one of them's definitely me because I have the tab open.
All right.
I'm watching the chat. And it's probably somebody else too. It's probably me and Alex Canis because he seems to be the other person commenting. Yeah, Alex, you're right. You know, James does tell us to use wine and water. That's the thing too, is that drinking alcohol itself is not really a sin. It's just when you over drink it or heavily drink it, then at that point it becomes wrong, or when you get drunk too. But like drinking alcohol itself is not a sin. Like if I want to have a cup of alcohol, that's not a sin. But if I overdo it, then at that point it becomes sin. Because like where's that verse in scripture? I think it's and also to bring up the good point too, like Alex, you bring up a good point. Also, how think about that is that alcohol back then was like nothing like it is today. Like alcohol back then was not like, I guess you could say, as dangerous as it is today too. What was it? It was it 2 Timothy chapter 5? Yeah, sorry, it was 2 Timothy 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 23. He says, "Drink no longer water, but use a little wine for their stomach's sake, and thine often infirmities." So yeah, they're wine they could use for their stomach's sake. So drinking wine and alcohol itself is not sin. It's just when you overdrink it or get drunk. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me there were kids selling cocaine in the washrooms and hallways. I mean, again, in my high school, every single time I'd go to the bathroom my high school had several bathrooms. Every single time it would reek of vape because there's kids doing vape in there. Because they knew that, well, it's banned on school property. We'll just do it where teachers aren't allowed. Or either they do it there or they just do it off school property. Like they'll go on their lunch break, and once you're off school property, they can't touch you at that point because you're off school property. So they just do it then too. They're doing it in the locker rooms. Oh wow, yeah. I mean, my high school, they never went that far. They just did it in the washrooms because the washrooms were the only place where the teachers were not where the adult teachers were not allowed to enter. The teachers had their own washrooms they could go to, but they weren't allowed in student washrooms. Only caretakers were allowed to, and even then they couldn't have any students in there while they were doing their stuff. But in my high school, like the punishment, like if you got caught drinking alcohol or smoking on the property, like the punishment was just instant suspension. That was the punishment. But very rarely did anyone ever get caught doing it because they did it in secret. And then some of them would, bring body spray so they don't reek of vape all the time as well. So they'd find creative ways to get around it. And the thing is, too, even if I did tell the principal, like, because there was a couple times where I did actually like think of telling the principal, like, hey, like they're doing this in the washroom. What could he really do? Because if you have to catch him in the act, but if you don't catch him in the act, it's hard, and you can't do it when they're in the washroom. So there wasn't much you really could have done anyway. And chances are you probably already was aware of it, but you couldn't do anything about it. Because it's hard. You can't really punish somebody for a crime if they haven't been caught yet.
What's your next video, John, you're going to do?
I don't know. I actually haven't started on. I actually haven't even done any notes for my next video yet. Oh, actually, I know what it was going to be. It was actually I was going to show some stuff about the Rich Pinkowski. Some of the stuff he was saying about another friend of mine. Basically exposing him, essentially. Yeah. The Rich. I did a video about him yesterday too with the Rich Pinkowski with them, showing clips of him saying all kinds of weird stuff, and yeah, he's like with the whole Ruben Israel, Jesse Morrell, street preacher, inner circle they have. So yeah, he has all the same wicked fruit they have. It's funny how all of them claim to be sinlessly perfect, yet all of them cuss like sailors a lot. Like all of them have all kinds of filthy tongues they use, yet they claim to be sinlessly perfect. It's pretty hilarious. Like you'll see them go, like you'll see them like when they're preaching at Sodom at rallies, they'll go into like graphic detail of sexual acts. I mean, it's pretty disgusting what they do. Even Watchman D, like, to give him credit where credit is due. Obviously, I think he's lost, but give him credit where credit is due. He at least, doesn't cuss when he street preaches, at least. Which, give him credit where credit is due, at least. I mean, he's still a lost hellbound heretic, but hey, at least he has some better morals than these other guys do.
I don't think he's done any videos lately, has he?
I haven't checked in, so I don't know because I haven't really checked in, but because I've done my stuff rebuking him, and I just if he's not going to repent, just leave him to God. But I mean I don't know what he's doing. I haven't checked in recently, but I don't know. I haven't seen him around a lot. But that debate I had with Watchman D, it actually was not like it was supposed to be about dispensationalism, but it went like really off topic because I actually had a whole bunch of notes like prepared for that, but it just went off topic, and that's why I sounded a bit kind of unprepared because it went off topic. But I had like a whole bunch of notes that I was ready, but I never got to touch any of them because it went off topic the whole time. But that's also why I find debates are just pointless because I used to debate Muslims as well on a channel called EF Dawa, and oftentimes it would just turn to a shouting match quite a lot. Plus, too, when I would debate those Muslims on EF Dawa, it's kind of hard when you have 5 of them versus 1 of me. It's kind of hard to debate when it's 5 versus 1. So what else comes to mind? Hey, Bob, you still there, or am I?
Yeah, I'm still here, John. Yeah.
Oh, for a second, I thought I was muted for a second.
No, I wouldn't mute you.
No, I thought I muted myself and I just didn't realize it. Because there have been a few times on a stream where I'd mute myself and then forget I did so, and then I'd say a whole sentence and then no one heard me because I was muted the whole time. Finally got around to uploading those videos we did yesterday. Took me so long because it took all morning to render the 2 clips. Because remember we did the stream last night. I just finally got done rendering them on Filmora. Alex Cansey says, it seems that your school had a safe environment policy, which is similar to what real churches have to employ in order to deter abusers. Yeah, I agree. There should be a safe environment policy. I mean, they're both use my videos. You can both use as my videos, and sorry, you can both use my videos as I am not monetized. That's okay. That's true. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't believe in monetization. I mean, me personally, I'm not for monetization in some cases, but in some cases, if you have to make money, you just have to do it. One sec. There's actually a scripture I wanted to read. Where was it? Oh! Actually, I want to just point this out too. This is kind of funny. Actually, I just wanted to quickly read this. So, I was going to share my screen if I figure out how to do that next time. Okay, share screen. Okay, my screen being shared. Okay, there we go. So basically, so this is a scripture I wanted to just quickly read. Actually, this is kind of just popped in my mind. Actually, so basically, what happens is that I'll just read it real quick. Leviticus chapter 10 verses 9. Leviticus chapter 10 verse 9 to 11. This is it says, "Do not drink wine nor strong drink, thou nor thy sons with thee, when you go into the tabernacle of the congregation, lest you die. It shall be a statute forever throughout in your generations." Not good at reading on the computer. That you may put difference between the unholy and the holy, the holy and the unholy, and between the clean and the unclean, and the unclean and the clean. Again, bad at reading on the computer. And that you may teach the children of Israel in all statutes which the Lord has spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. So basically, the reason why I find the scripture interesting is because they are this is basically instructions for Israelite priests, and they're told don't drink wine nor strong drink. Well, according to the Catholic Catechism, basically the Catholic priests are basically a continuation, or essentially like for another version of the Old Testament Israelite priesthood. Well, they violate verse 9 right here by their mass ritual when they drink wine. So it's kind of interesting how they contradict even the Old Testament requirements for priesthood, because supposedly they're a continuation of the Old Testament priesthood. Just thought I'd point that out. kind of want to get in the habit of using StreamYard more often when I do live streams. The only problem is that when I try playing videos, there's always no audio. So that's why I just use OBS so I can actually play audio. That's the thing too. Yeah. Oh, let me just click that. Hey, Bob, I'm going to head out now. Do you want to stream similar time today as well? We could do it similar time today as well. I'm just going to head out now.
Yeah. Well,
what was it?
I'm going to have a kip. I've got to finish reading this book.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I've run out of things to say.
Email me.
Sure.
Because I'm always checking my emails.
Mm.
And we'll talk again.
Yeah. Sure. I've just run out of things to say. That's all. So I've run out. I'm normally the most talkative one, but for once I've actually run out of stuff to say.
Yeah. Well, we go through some scripture when you come back.
Yeah.
It's 11 o'clock where you are.
Yeah.
So you're going to be having your dinner. You're going to be having your dinner. You're going to be having your dinner in an hour or so, I suppose.
It's 11 o'clock a.m. where I am, so it's still the morning.
Yeah, and give it 4 or 5 hours. I really want to finish this book off, John, because
no problem.
I've had it on. I mean, I'm 2/3 way through, maybe 4/5, and it's taken me 2 weeks to get through it. And normally, I mean, I could read that in 2 days.
Right.
Every time I sit down to read it, I just fall asleep.
Oh.
So, not because the book's boring, I just feel tired all the time.
Mm.
Well, not tired, just, you know.
Yeah, well, I guess the problem is too is that when you're like I think even for me too, and I'm a young guy. I'm only 20, and even if I'm idle for a long time, I just get tired too. Like even right now, I'm kind of sleepy because I've been sitting down for so long.
Yeah.
You know, there's a verse in Isaiah 40 where it talks about how even youths they grow tired and weary too. So even young guys like me, we can still get exhausted.
Yeah.
So email
me.
Sure.
Email me, John.
Sure.
The usual email address.
No problem.
I usually get a notification sound when I get an email.
Oh, one last thing. Alex can ask more comment. He says he has a video on Bryan Denlinger twisting Luke 23 to add the sacred scripture to tie the languages of Pilate signed to Noah's named sons. Bryan Denlinger is constantly twisting scripture, so it doesn't surprise me. I mean, he likes using 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 19 to try to say, 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 1 to say, you can't rebuke an elder, but then he forgets to read verses 19 and 20 where it gives the requirements for rebuking an elder, which by the way, Tim actually fulfilled both requirements. So Tim had every right to rebuke Bryan regardless if he's an elder or not, but Bryan didn't like that. So anyway, I'll be heading out now. So yeah.
Oh, John, are you able to send text messages abroad? Oh, he's gone. Right, I'm going to go now. John's going to come back later. I've got a few things I want to do. I just want to lay down for a couple of hours, you know. I'm going to play this and then I'm gone.